Here we go then. A day like no other in cricket. Fair to say, when the auction comes around, there's a different sort of feeling as we are ready for what could likely be the last of the big mega auctions. The IPL has been rechristened, two new teams have been added, 10 players added to a pool of 590 overnight. So we are looking at 600 players, 250 or so at the end of it should be formed, should be part of 10 squads. And we have you covered all through the day, today and tomorrow, as we present to you our exhaustive auction coverage on TVS. Eurogrip presents ESPN Cricket for Auction Day, powered by Kisma Gaming. We should rechristen identities as well on days like this. So, along with being New Zealand's former Test captain and head coach of RCB, there's a former RCB player in Dan Vittori. There's a former RCB player in Wasim Jaffer, as well as more recently the Punjab Kings batting coach. And Gaurav Sundaraman, ESPN Cricket For's auction guru, has also had the pleasure of advising RCB and Mumbai Indians. So there's a lot of RCB presence here. I wonder who RCB are finally going to use. They're going to use Mike Hesson's brains today. But it's a very good evening to Dan, a very good morning to Gaurav and Dan. Fair to say, this is a unique sort of feeling when the auction comes around. Well, that's a start and a half. I think Dan Vittori is still not plugged in. He was talking to me just fine before we went live. I'll just wait for Dan to get his audio or his volume back. Yeah, I've got it now.
Yeah, sorry.
Don't be late on the pedal, Dan. Come on. Yeah, timing is
actually, being late on the pedal, it's handy at times. Just keep it down. Just keep it down. And I think it's incredibly exciting, actually, to sit from afar and not to have the nerves of going into an auction, but actually to see what players are what team's going to do and the strategy, particularly early on with the extra two franchises, the amount of money available. I think the first two sets are going to define the whole auction.
It's the kind of day which changes the lives of a lot of young cricketers, especially Indian cricketers, isn't it, Wasim? As the auction over the years has proven to move more towards this uncapped Indian pool or more Indian resources. It changes lives, doesn't it?
It does, and it does for good. Obviously, the marquee players, they are in demand, but the uncapped players sometimes are the unsung heroes. And because you play 7 Indian players, so they will be in demand. And a lot of young players have shown that you need to have a look at them as well. Venkatesh Iyer last year, Gaikwad was one of them, and a lot of other players. I mean, I don't remember the names now, but I mean, those are the players who have done really well. So a lot of lives will change, after tonight.
Absolutely. Gaurav breathes, eats, sleeps auctions, and the big ones don't come as often. Maybe there won't be another one. So what's special about today, GS? What are we looking forward to?
Yeah, you're spot on. Hi, Dan. Hi, Wasim. So I think this is a very challenging auction compared to previous auctions. One of the biggest reasons being there's no right to match card. So all the effort Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, Delhi, Punjab, or all the other old teams put to kind of get some good talent on board, now they have to buy them back. It's good for the players. They get the value they deserve. Sometimes I also feel all the players should go into the auction. There shouldn't be a retention at all. But anyway, that's not going to happen. We know that. But for that purpose, it's a very challenging auction. I'm very curious to see how the teams shape up, how they overcome this difficult challenge of buying back the players they want, which is what I'm very excited to watch.
I'm curious. You snuck in Punjab there in that list of Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata and Chennai in terms of players that they wanted to retain. They didn't want to retain anybody. Wasim Jaffer was in that dugout last season. They've only managed to keep Mayank and Arshdeep. Of course, they would have loved to keep KL Rahul. We know that the player moved on for different reasons. And yeah, we've got plenty to break down for you. Let's just give you a quick brief on what's to come. Of course, you've been following our coverage on ESPN Cricinfo. The numbers were put to you by Gaurav as well as Vishal Dikshit in an all-you-need-to-know piece last evening. 600 players now, 10 more registered, all 10 uncapped players. 217 at a max can be sold, 70 of them being overseas picks. We know that 33 players in total have already been either retained or secured by the two new franchises. 561.5 crores, that's a little less than 75 million US dollars, can be spent at the auction today. The average age of players, I don't know why Gaurav given that one, but it's 27. I'm going to ask him why he's done that. And 73% of the players in the auction pool are either bowlers or all-rounders. Curiously, though, with the exception of Anil Kumble and Ashish Nehra, there are batters deciding their fate. But let me ask Gaurav, Any more numbers that he wants to throw up there?
No, but just for the understanding for viewers, Imran Tahir is the oldest member who signed up for the auction, and Noor Ahmed from Afghanistan is the youngest. So you have someone who's 17 and you have someone who's 43. So it's going to be exciting. I'm sure both have a good chance of getting picked up. So that's what the IPL opens up to cricketers, right? The opportunity to start very early and also to have a career in your early 40s, which was not possible maybe a few years ago.
Okay. A couple of questions that I'd just like to. We have about 20 minutes before the auction starts. I'd love to ask both Dan and Wasim now whether there are certain things that affect judgment very close to the auction. I'm sure you have all your meetings and plans in place well in advance, but we suddenly hear only in the build-up to the auction, Dan, that a number of players may not be available. Are you already sort of factored there, or the dynamics change suddenly if a David Warner or a Pat Cummins is not going to be available for a good part of the IPL, especially for this season?
I think franchises would have had that information prior to this. It's possibly just been announced now. So the Australian players missing, a few games at the start of the tournament would have been factored into it. And there'll be a lot of franchises who are working between, is this a 3-year plan or is this a 1-year plan? So that will certainly set up some dynamics for some of the teams who are all in this year. They want to do well, so they'll make sure that they can select a team that's available for all of the games possible. I think that'll play a huge part in the way they do. And I think the other thing is I think franchises will want to try and avoid, I suppose, those generalizations or those stereotypical conversations that can be had around, the player who does well just before the tournament's going to make the most money. Those sorts of things, I think the franchises have moved on past that, and I think they are pretty clear. That doesn't mean that some emotion won't come into some of these selections. I think beforehand they will have a very clear understanding of where they want to take their franchise, but they still have to understand that those plans can quickly be taken away, and can they adjust on the fly?
And that's the one question we tend to have about some franchises, Wasim. And you're a great person to ask this question to. The games and the IPL has changed so much from 2008 when you played as a player to say 2021 when you were part of the management of a team, and that's a team, Punjab. That's always questions are asked of them. They go into an auction with a lot of money. They don't necessarily come out perhaps with having made most advantage of that sort of money. Have all teams gotten smarter? Is there still a bit of a bridge in understanding how to master an auction?
I think the team that have mastered after Chennai and Mumbai, I would say Delhi Capitals, they have actually have improved quite a lot. The kind of the team they have built 2-3 years from now is exceptional, and the results are showing. So I think the continuity part, I think Ronak plays a very important role. You need to stick to the players. There's very limited time. You don't need to chop and change too much. You need to show a lot of faith on the players. And I think we have made that mistake. I mean, if I can talk about Punjab, we have not, done that really well. We haven't given them the players, the stability and all that, if I can speak for Punjab. But I think you need to master that. You need to understand that the dynamics of your team has to be Indian oriented more. The Indian players make more impact, whether it's capped players, whether it's uncapped players, and then you fill in with your foreign internationals. I think that's how you need to approach the auction, in my opinion. And that is what Mumbai Indians have done before, and Chennai have done before, and Delhi Capitals are doing so well. So I think the other teams, even if I speak for Rajasthan Royals, they have not been very successful. Punjab hasn't been, really successful in that part as well. So they need to now is the time to build, a really good team. When you've got so many players in the pool, now is the time to, pick the right balance for your team and stick to them.
Or if you want to please, Dan.
I was going to say, I think the teams that Wasim mentioned, the CSK, the Mumbai, are the teams that have the 3-year plans, and they look for longevity in their picks. They want players going to be around for a while. And that doesn't mean they don't make mistakes. I think CSK, Mumbai and Delhi would say that they've made selection errors at the auction table, but they've come from the perspective of this is a 3-year player, we're prepared to spend a bit more money. And they may regret that, and they may move on after a year, but I think it's the intent that sets them apart, as opposed to maybe Punjab or Rajasthan, who are what can we do this year? How do we win this year? How do we make the playoffs? Or isn't it mid-table? Which team declared mid-table was a success this year?
Yeah.
So whoever has that intent in mind, I think tends to go better in the auction, the 3-year plan.
Yeah, who did we say for mid-table? We did such an exhaustive preview. Gaurav, who was it that we said? Nagaraj said he spoke to one of the franchises and they said they'd be happy with the mid-table finish. Was that?
Yeah, I think I don't remember that.
I think it was Rajasthan.
I think it's Rajasthan, yeah.
Yeah, it was Rajasthan Royals. A lot of management seems to be moving around as well, so we have to keep the pieces together before we actually remember who said what from where. So we'll have you covered, though. We're hoping to even speak to representatives of the franchise in the next couple of days. But it is give you maybe a bit of a recap on the auction. Some of these numbers are well known. These names are well known. The auction has always thrown stories, some of disbelief even, on the kind of money that's been spent. But now we've come to terms with it. If you look at the most expensive Indian players, for instance, we know Yuvraj Singh has made headlines not once but twice. In particular, when he was released and nearly bought back for more the money, for more the money that RCB were willing to let go of him for. That was 2014-15, at a time where, of course, Gaurav was advising RCB, right, Gaurav? Anyway, Dinesh Karthik in 2014.
I was coaching. I can talk you through that story if you like.
Yeah, I'm gonna come to both of you.
Off air.
I think we've seen a lot of changes since that time for RCB, not just management, but also ownership. So that tells you something. If you look at some of the others on that list, we look at the overseas buys. Chris Morris, just speaking to the host broadcaster in India, of course, Star Sports a little while back, at 16.25 crore, recently announced his retirement. Wonder if Morris would have been keen to just have one more season in, given the dearth of all-rounders that tend to show up at the auction. Pat Cummins, big money in 2020. Kyle Jameson's not going to be part of this auction. Very interestingly, big payday for him last year. Ben Stokes also not part of this auction. And Glenn Maxwell, of course, retained. So just one out of those 5 is actually available at today's auctions. That's the Australian Test captain in Pat Cummins. No word with Kyle Jameson, Dan? Come on, one more here. Could have sneaked it in. Nice big payday.
Look, I think to be fair, it's definitely a tactical decision from Cole. I think it's around the rest first and foremost. I think he was disappointed with his performances at the back half of the year for New Zealand. Just probably didn't have that zip that we're used to. And potentially coming off that big payday, going into a big auction, that maybe if he takes a year off, he can come back into those smaller auctions and potentially have a similar sort of result. Maybe not to that extent, but I definitely think it's a tactical decision on his part.
Interesting. Now, JS, from what you've seen of the auctions, are we likely to see that big payday, or do we usually see these sort of numbers broken at those small auctions that Dilip talks about?
So what I expect, just looking at the way the pool is, I think a lot of Indian players will be getting a lot of high money. Maybe the odd player, like we've been speaking for days now, Ishan Kishan, Shreyas Iyer, maybe one of them could really go pretty heavily unless if 2 teams want them. But I think a lot of people will come under the 9 to 12 range, right? A lot of Indian players. So you would see a more consistent spend across the Indian players, and that's pretty high. A lot of Indian fast bowlers getting 9 to 12 was not something very common before. So that's how the spend pattern would be. I don't think you'll have 5-6 players going above 15-16 crores. That's not going to happen. The odd player maybe, and you'll have a lot of high buys in the range of 8 to 12 crores. And just one fact from the previous graphic, just for the viewers, Jaydev Unadkat is the player to have gone under the hammer the maximum number of times, 9 times. No other player has gone so many times under the hammer. So that's an interesting fun fact. Maybe today is the 10th time he's going to go, and we'll see whether he has a good pick. A lot of players have gone 6-7 times, but Unadkat leads the pack.
I really wish he does. I'm a big fan of Jaydev Unadkat. Also like his tweets. Wants to make an impression at some point with red ball cricket. But anyway, Unadkat's a great story in the IPL. As we look at some of the uncapped Indian players, though, they tend to bring out stories of their own. And we know that K. Gautam got a seriously good payday again at a slightly smaller auction. Krunal Pandya, big buy in 2018. Now, we don't know if he'll end up at Mumbai Indians again. We think it's unlikely. Pawan Negi was quite the story as well in 2016. Varun Chakravarti, one of the retained players for KKR. Riley Meredith curiously bought at the back of Big Bash League success in 2021 by Punjab Kings. And he wasn't even the most expensive Australian buy. They had Jai Richardson for nearly twice that amount, but they had a lot of money, did Punjab, going in that year. The uncapped players are their own story. chat, Wasim, at the moment on Shah Rukh Khan. I wonder what the buzz is from domestic players. You're still, of course, active with Odisha in the Ranji Trophy. What's the domestic players like? Everyone's glued in on a day like this to the TV.
I think so. I think a lot of scouts when I'm coaching with Odisha, so I've seen a lot of scouts in Vijay Hazare Trophy and even Mushtaq Ali Trophy. I've seen a lot of scouts there, and they must have noticed and seen the players they want to approach. There a lot of trials have happened. So it's really interesting that they spend a bit of money on the uncapped players because they can give you maximum returns. I mean, we've seen it with Venkatesh Iyer. He didn't play the first half last season, and when he was given a chance, he was a complete turnaround for KKR, and he was definitely played his part in that. So I think a lot of uncapped players go unnoticed, and I feel that sometimes coaches are a little bit hesitant in putting them inside. We have seen with Devdutt Padikkal and like I said, Rituraj Gaikwad and all the other players. They are fine players and they know the conditions so well. So I would like to see a lot of Indian uncapped players sold at good price. Shah Rukh Khan definitely is one of them. He's into the auction. He's just come into the Indian side in the squad in the ODI team, but he's a very fine player. And a lot of other guys who work so tirelessly hard to get to this platform, because nowadays you've seen the pattern, Ronak, that the selectors don't see at Ranji Trophy at the same way they used to see few years before. Now IPL is the benchmark of selection in most times. So they work really hard to come to this platform, and I hope a lot of young players do get an opportunity here.
Yeah. There are quite a few of them that are strong candidates to earn a big payday. Now that we have 10 franchises, remember, so you've just got to add the number of firstly Indian players that are going to certainly play in an IPL season, and therefore those numbers just tend to go up. Let's have a look at some of the uncapped Indian players to watch out for at this auction. some pictures that might need some updating there, but that's what we get in our archive. Avesh Khan's put on some muscle since those days. Timing's everything, though. He's going to come in a little later in the auction, is Avesh Khan. Let me just go back to Wasim Jaffer as we still continue this chat on auction day with Dan Vittori and Gaurav Sundaraman. Interesting list that, Wasim. We know that the likes of Padikkal, Ruturaj Gaikwad, they came with great 50 over domestic form and were on the radar for franchise. Some guys who made an impression in the IPL itself. Lalit Yadav with his limited appearances, Rahul Tripathi, of course. What's sort of on the priority list for you in terms of players that you want to try and get in here? Pure freshers from domestic cricket, or those that have already shown that they've got something in the IPL?
I think somebody who have done well in the IPL definitely, get, the first look in, because sometimes you want to test those. You want to pick those who have already faced those conditions, somebody who's faced those, pressure situations. So those guys will definitely get the priority. But like I said, the guys who have not played IPL, they'll still be one to look out for. Because like I said, they prepare themselves throughout the season for these opportunities, and sometimes I feel the Indian players value IPL far more sometimes than the international player. Not that the international players don't value, but the Indian players know the importance of playing in IPL, that this is the platform that which will get them to the Indian team. But for the foreign international, it's not the same thing. They play as professionally because they're getting paid and they need to deliver. But the Indian players, they play for certain reasons. So I feel, definitely the guys who have played, players like Shah Rukh Khan, Avesh and Rahul Tripathi and all those guys, they'll be, obviously first in the auction that you want to build your franchise from. But the other guys also, you need to look in like Prabh Simran Singh and Harpreet Brar, the guys who I worked with, and all the other guys. We've got a couple of players from Odisha who are very, very talented players, and around all the Indian state teams. I think, they are very fine players. They just need an opportunity to showcase their talent.
Yeah, we've already picked Shah Rukh Khan as one player to watch out for. A high pay package potentially today. Number of other names that you saw on that list. There are some overseas rookies also that you should keep an eye out for. Lots of chat on social media overnight for Odean Smith. Whatever plans you think franchises haven't played, they're anyway headed before that quite thrilling contest with Kuldeep Yadav at Ahmedabad last evening. But here are some rookies to watch out for from the overseas contingent in today's auction. The music gets you buzzing, isn't it? If you're in the mood on a Saturday morning. Nice assortment that. Israqul Naveed from Afghanistan, saw him in the Under-19 World Cup. Hasn't played a T20, and you've got Charita Salanka, who's already been captain every format. So it's quite the assortment of foreign players. Dan Vittori, what do you make of that list? You've been around in the last year or so, coaching in the 100, coaching in the CPL. Anyone else that you think should feature there?
Well, I suppose a lot of the names from the Indian uncapped players to the sort of rookie international players are pretty well known names, I think, for most fans of cricket and obviously franchises. So it'll be interesting to see who comes apart from that list. The one player that I did want to mention was Odean Smith, and seeing him up close and how quick he actually bowls. I think it's something that people probably quite haven't got their heads around. That is incredibly fast bowler. He's one-dimensional hitter at the moment, but I think he's someone who develop. So that's the prototypical sort of overseas player that franchises fall in love with. So I think he will be one of those players who franchises look very closely at and think that he can be the next Andre Russell for them.
Yeah, we always try and figure what the appetite for franchises is, GS, when we see that list that comes out. Now, I'm sure you've seen that list about, at least 10, 11 times? Correct me if I'm wrong. How many times have you scanned through that final list? And Devil Brevis, we spoke about him. He comes in pretty early, set number 7. Odean Smith, you can tell me when exactly he's featuring in, because that does affect
way below.
how much go in. Go for it.
Yeah, so this auction, like I had mentioned in the preview, it's very important to scout such overseas talent. Like Wasim had said earlier, the Indians are the ones who are going to be key, pay big for them, and identify some nice overseas talent who can do a good job at a very, very low price. And that is where these names come in. Odean Smith, is exactly an example of what Dan had mentioned, which shouldn't ideally happen in terms of recency bias and the fact that he's really not yet shown in international cricket. How does he play the googly in India? We saw he did get out to spin once in the ODI series. So we'll have to wait and see whether these guys perform. Having said that, yeah, we have to play around with what options we have. A name like Devon Conway, for example, I'm a big fan of his style of play. He could work in for certain franchises as a backup player. If required, he plays the sweep shot well. He can kind of play through the innings. He has an excellent start to his career. Alex Hales, I know he's capped. He's not a rookie anymore, but nobody's picking him in the IPL for some time. Why? I don't know. But I think, again, he's a great talent. He can just come and win at least a couple or 2-3 matches for you on his own. He plays only T20 cricket all through his life now, and that's a skill set, I think, which is important, because you go attend so many meetings, you play against so many bowlers, you play different kind of conditions, and you kind of generally succeed, right? More, and T20 is a game where you fail a lot more than you succeed. So if Hales can win me a couple of games, these are players I would look at this auction, because you might get them cheaper, and that is the most important. For me, the price point in this auction is more important than just going and paying 10-11 crores for an Odean Smith, because you need that 10-11 crores for an Indian player, and I rather compensate it with an overseas.
Interesting. Right. So clock strikes noon. The IPL auction should get underway any minute now. There'll be a few formalities before the first set actually comes up, and that first set's well spoken of now. The marquee set, which the IPL at its discretion put together from what they call a skill of or rather a specialized set of players across their skill sets. Otherwise, every set is essentially batters, bowlers, wicket keepers, and in bowlers, fast and spin bowlers, as well as all-rounders. So they've done it as per skill set. The marquee players, of which we've seen 10 names pop up. We'll have a look at that list now. And what you are seeing are players that have done well at the IPL recently, players that are capped in all formats internationally. Of course, there are exceptions to that, but we do know the likes of Quinton de Kock are seriously going to be considered in that set. Trent Bolt coming off a couple of great IPLs. Rabada, question marks over how much they'll be available, but let's leave that aside. I've already got some questions coming in on our YouTube feed. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter today, so keep those questions coming. I'm going to keep having a look. There are already some questions coming in saying who's going to go unsold from the marquee set. Are we going to find someone unsold from that marquee set? Dan Vittori, you're nodding.
Not unsold, but I think passed in the first time round. I think teams will come back round to them. I think if a Suresh Raina comes out first, teams will want to keep their powder dry. I think they'll want to hold that 2 crore for something later on. And if he presents himself at the back end of the auction, then I think he'll be a viable option. But I think teams will want every cent they can grab early on.
Raina, in that second set of batters number 1, the marquee set of 10 players before that, when we were doing the preview, Wasim, interesting that GS and Dan both said we'll be very keen to see how Punjab start the auction. They've got the advantage. Now, would you look to cash in on as many of those players that you're seeing at the bottom of your screen now on the marquee set, saying, I've got the muscle, I can go and get who I want here, maybe 2 or 3? Or would you say, nah, I'm going to hold that advantage deeper into the auction, try and get Ishan Kishan or Avesh Khan or some of the high-profile Indian names that come a bit later? How would you like to see Punjab approach this auction?
I think firstly they need to identify who's going to captain. If they are looking for a captain, then who they want to go really hard on. As we have discussed, that David Warner is not going to available. That is going to cause their approach. Shreyas Iyer, he's a captaincy material, so we might see them going after him. If they've made up a mind on Mayank Agarwal, because they have not announced whether Mayank Agarwal leads Punjab. And then obviously, like I said, investing more on the Indian players, whether from this side, Shikhar Dhawan is available, Ashwin is available, obviously, and Shreyas Iyer. And then later on, lot of other players. So investing in those, because, I know Anil Kumble really well, and he does want to, buy players from Indian pool. So he'll be definitely targeting those players, depending on who he's got his eyes on the captaincy job. But other than that, I feel he'll be taking slow and steady and targeting a lot of Indian players.
Yep, that's one thing to see how Punjab go about their auction along with Sunrisers Hyderabad. They've got the most balanced purse. Let's quickly remind you of that too. Going into the auction, you've got the numbers on the side. If you're missing anything, just head over. Lots, we've got you covered entirely for today's auction. 72 crore for Punjab. Remember the slots here. You have to build a squad of at least 18 players and a maximum of 25. You've also got to spend at least 67.5 crore. That tends to happen most times than not. Otherwise, your entire purse balance is 90 crore. 72 for Punjab, 68 for Hyderabad. In brackets, you've got the number of overseas options. You've got less. Everyone's got either 7 or 8. You've got 6 in the case of Kolkata. So keep that in mind as well as to how many overseas players you can manage. Squad size, etc., remains unchanged in spite of all the talk of perhaps a more deep squad or more vast squad given COVID times and whatnot. But none of that seems to have been affected, right? The IPL chairman's already started proceedings. So Brajesh Patel's speaking just as we speak now. We're getting all set for this auction. GS, just give me one more chat on the marquee set when it comes up first up. We know that the order is still going to be random. We know that they are listed as 1 to 10 on the sheet we've got, but they could come up in any order in that, right?
Yeah, within the first 10, they'll pick lots and anybody can come. I also personally feel like there's so much hype on Shreyas Iyer, but a team like Punjab, if they've already decided on Mayank, I think they can kind of skip Iyer and go behind Warner and a Rabada or someone like that. That kind of adds more strength to their team. So among the list, it's just a early prediction that Mohammad Shami might be the one to get the least. I'm not saying in terms of interest, but in terms of money, I think Shami and Ashwin and Faf seem to be at the bottom pile of the 10. They'll still get 7-8 crores or whatever, but it might be because there are a lot more options for Shami, for example. You'd want a Deepak Chahar, Shardul Thakur, and you have a lot more Indian pacers. Prasidh Krishna has impressed everybody recently. So you may want to keep your options open. So that's where I'm again very curious to see in the marquee set if teams want to take that chance, which Dan and Wasim have mentioned. What if you don't get them later? You're really stuck. So that is the auction strategy. That's where you have to kind of sometimes be convinced with what you have. And that's what CSK, I think Dan mentioned the same thing in the preview. They do pretty well. They don't go, they're okay leaving such names. I think Chennai and Mumbai will not be so active in the marquee set, is my view. We'll wait and watch. But I think Chennai and Mumbai don't need to be very active right now for these particular players.
Let's get a quick prediction on the set like GS has given. It's a nice thing to start off with. Exciting, right? He says Shami maybe not as much. Mumbai and Chennai to be a bit quiet. Dan, looking at that set, what are we predicting from the marquee set now?
I think GS probably summed it up. I think CSK and Mumbai will keep their cards close to them. I think it would be a great strategy if someone like Punjab did the same sort of thing and then waited until those Indian players came along and spent their money there. So it's just when that player feels like it's going to pass by. So someone makes one bid, then you make another bid, then you make another bid, and start convincing yourself this is a bargain. And then all of a sudden you're in a lot deeper than you want. So it's almost a case of if you could leave the auction room for the first 4 or 5 slots, I think it would be a great idea for some franchises.
All right, let me get a prediction from Wasim. What do you make of that? Mohammad Shami, how much interest for him, Wasim, in comparison to all the other options that will come later, as GS has pointed out? Give me a prediction for this set, as it's about to start any second now.
I think Shami will interest a lot of franchise. There definitely he's a fine bowler, somebody who gives you wickets up front, and he's doing really well. He had a decent IPL last couple of seasons, so I feel he's going to be in demand. There's no doubt about it. Being an Indian player, I feel the Indian bowlers like Umesh, Shami, all those guys need to be in demand. But I think Quinton de Kock and Trent Boult might be the one who will be obviously in high demand going into the first lot.
All right. Just as we speak now, Edemirez has taken over the podium, and the auction is about to commence any second. I've got a good question already from our YouTube, from I think a Gujarat Titans fan, Rahul Anand. Of course, the name wasn't confirmed when we were live last time on Tuesday, but he says, why haven't the Gujarat Titans got a logo yet? I'm not sure. I'm guessing that's true. I haven't sort of checked out their social handles yet, but looks like the creatives aren't in order. Score out of 10 on the name Gujarat Titans, GS?
Score out of 10? Yeah, I think it's new. It's better than Cochin Indie Commandos or something, which came out in 2011. I remember that. So yeah, I'll give it a score. I'll give it 9.
Yeah, Wasim, let me ask Wasim, 9 out of 10, because Lucknow Super Giants seem to get quite a few mixed responses on Twitter. Wasim?
I would say 6. I think they could have done better.
Okay, 6. Yeah, I think that's we never actually rated the names of the original franchises, at least not in the social media booming age. It'd be very interesting to see what you'd give a Mumbai Indians or Delhi Capitals. I know weren't received well when they'd rechristened themselves. Right, Shikhar Dhawan's the first player who's come up in the auction. 2 crore is a base price. Someone like Dhawan, do you still see him as a captain choice, a potential captain candidate, even though he has had the job and then been let go off at Sunrisers? Wasim, what do you make of Shikhar Dhawan? Is he still a captain candidate?
I don't think so. I wouldn't put that pressure because he's done that before, and he's not really been successful. So you want to leave him aside because as a player he's done so well. So you don't want to put that pressure on him. Some players obviously don't respond really well, so you don't want to. You want the batsman Shikhar Dhawan. So I wouldn't look at him at this point as a captainship material.
Very interesting, Ranak, that Rajasthan are bidding for Shikhar when they have a top 3 in their team. So I just want to ask the experts, why would they want to bid for Dhawan? Is it maybe a strategic one to increase his price? Because they have Jaiswal, they have Butler, they have Samson, and they seem to be going strong for Dhawan.
Excellent. And when they had all these options last season, they still wanted to throw Steve Smith at the top, Ben Stokes at the top. So Dan's good friend Andrew McDonald, and after him Kumar Sangakkara, made some interesting calls for this franchise. Let's take that to you, Dan. Interesting that Rajasthan seemed to be interested in Dhawan. We thought they wouldn't put their paddle up for any openers initially.
Yeah, maybe it's back to the point that we made in the preview round that they hadn't had any senior Indian players bar Rahane, and maybe they do want some leadership to support Sanju Samson. They will have to reconfigure their batting order. I know that they like Joss Butler to actually bat 5 or 6 in their dream lineup, but because he's been so good up in the top of the order, hasn't always been easy. So maybe that could force the situation. You get the best of both worlds from what they want, that middle order batsman and Joss Butler, plus they get a senior Indian player who can come into the fold.
That one's 36, Dan. You speak of a 3-year plan for a lot of successful franchises. Now, would it be wise to look at Dhawan, the fit batter, still someone who can offer you 3-4 years of IPL, or are you looking at him more short term?
I'm thinking Tom Brady. I'm thinking all these guys, they idolize the guys who are playing for a long period of time, and particularly Shikhar. I mean, he's been so fit for a number of years. He's sort of reinvented himself as a supreme athlete and a guy who can actually stay in the park. And so I don't think franchises will worry about his age at all. I think they'll see a 39-year-old Shikhar Dhawan as someone who can contribute. That won't be the case for every 36-year-old, but I think Shikhar, you can look in isolation and realise that he will age very well.
Dhawan straight to the Capitals was when he was at a price of 5.2 crore. So he's already gone past that now, 6.25 and counting. And the Capitals, unsurprisingly, Wasim, are continuing to show interest in him. I guess familiarity,
I
loyalty.
think they've just stopped.
They've just stopped, have they, GS? Up 625 is what I'm seeing on my monitor right now. And it looks like it's
Yeah,
with the Punjab Kings.
Punjab.
So,
Makes sense.
so all-
It's sold, I think, no? Okay.
not is he
No.
650, 675? It goes on. So I
Yeah,
think we're going
Delhi-
to have a at the auction.
Oh, Delhi are back in
Delhi
it
are still
again.
interested. Delhi are still interested. So they want Dhawan and Shaw together. Dhawan and Mayank Agarwal, if that is to happen at Punjab, who have now entered rather aggressively. And I think, Wasim, the minute Punjab enters the auction, suddenly there will be a change, wouldn't there? Other tables will suddenly go, oh dear, do we want to get into a big bidding war with the chip leader on the table?
I know that's the past experience, isn't it? But I think Dhawan and Mayank would make a good pair, left hand, right hand. And that's where Punjab have been successful with KL and Mayank being so successful, and the other batters haven't, contributed as much. So obviously they would look at somebody to partner Mayank really well, whether it's a foreign opener, whether it's an Indian opener. Indian opener would be the ideal choice, but I think they would look at somebody who's aggressive at the top.
Okay, Parjindal has
And the
said
other
no
fact is that,
at 825. Yes, carry on.
yeah, so one interesting thing which will happen is you'll see a lot of teams coming in a bit late also this time to see the bid, to do the bids, because people want to check what price point is going. Already, most of the prices are going to be slightly elevated than normal. So you have to wait and watch and see what
And
happens.
we've got our
we
first
predicted
sale.
that.
We've got our first sale, and we wanted to know, will Punjab Kings sit tight and want to exercise, their balance purse deeper? They have taken the first player, the team with the highest balance purse, 8.25 crore. So Shikhar Dhawan is going to Punjab Kings, possibly to bat alongside Mayank Agarwal. So let me get a quick reaction on that. Dan, 8.25 crore. That's some money.
I think it's a good price. I think he's deserving of that sort of money. Whether he's excited to go to Kings 11's another matter. But I think we did predict that these top teams will come back to the back end of their purse very quickly. So expect after the sort of marquee set that most of the franchises will have a similar amount of money.
Effectively to play the role KL Rahul did for them. Such an important player that Punjab have to now find a replacement for, Wasim. So Dhawan and Mayank for you at Punjab. 8.25, fair money for you. Your reaction on the price eventually?
I think so. I think he deserves that prize. He has had a couple of, maybe more than couple years, great IPL, and he's somebody who I'm definitely not looking at him as a captainship material, but he's somebody with experience who can give a lot of important advice to the captain, and being a senior player, I think he deserves that prize.
All right, fair enough. At 8.25, so Dhawan is going to go to Punjab. Let me get Dan's reaction. R. Ashwin's up for a bid at the moment, and interestingly, I think I saw KKR put their paddle up. So like Rajasthan, they too are very keen to add to a spin contingent that they already possess in
And
Narayan.
both KKR need captain. So
yeah, they do. I mean, interesting. If they're looking at Ashwin as a captain, would he be a sure starter when you've got Narayan, Varun Chakravarti already in that team? But keep an eye out. Now, one thing I'll get is a reaction from Dan while Ashwin's bid crosses 3 crore on how you get affected if a Punjab or a Hyderabad enter the bidding war a bit later. You've played enough poker, haven't you, Dan?
Yeah, it certainly plays its part. I think it's twofold as well. I think you think you can stay in it a little bit longer because Punjab aren't going to give up, so you can probably push their purse a little bit. But albeit that that ultimately if they want to get a player, they'll get a player. And until those purses sort of even up, or you start to see where the balance of their playing 11 are, that's when you can start to push a little bit harder. I think once you see a player who's potentially not going to be in someone else's playing 11, but him being yours, that's where the push can come in for a little bit more against these, I suppose, higher-powered teams with more money at the start.
Looks like Delhi have shown interest in Ashwin. We're seeing Rajasthan Royals show an interest in Ashwin. Now, you know him reasonably well, GS, don't you? And he's still keen to captain, you think, R. Ashwin. He's not in his control where he'll end up, but he would certainly love to be at a franchise which at least opens the door to captaincy.
Definitely, because captaining, you want to finish on a high. I think he also has about 3-4 years left in him. So maybe this cycle so definitely captaincy, but more than captaincy, it's the skill set, finger spinner skill set, which are very, very few. Like we had been discussing, you have just Jayant Yadav, you have R. Ashwin, and you have a bunch of all-rounders there, but you don't have too many people. So people want that skill set. You know how it is. A left-hander comes in to open, you immediately throw the ball to a finger spinner who tries to get him out. So these are a skill set which is unique. He's up front, coming right in front. So a lot of teams will be interested. Rajasthan, logically, yes, because they've always lacked in the spin department, and he would be a very good addition to them. And we'll have to wait and see. I still think there's room for a couple of teams to come in late.
Yeah, I think so. I'm actually seeing. I'm going to keep an eye on the Sunrisers table here to see if they're interested in Ashwin. They have to find someone to lead that spin attack in Rashid Khan's absence. They also have to find someone who's an able deputy to Kane Williamson, with all the concerns around Williamson's elbow. Wonder if Ashwin is that man. We also have Chennai Super Kings. They need to find someone.
He's been sold to
transaction. Okay, and just as we speak, 5 crore to the Rajasthan Royals. So there he goes. Let's get a quick reaction on that. Dan Vittori, 5 crore Ashwin to Rajasthan Royals.
I wasn't brave enough at the start to say that I thought he wouldn't go for huge money, but I think 5 crore is probably a fair reflection of what Ashwin can bring to the table, and the fact that he bowls in those middle stages very well, and he can bowl to matchups. And so teams will place a bet on that. And that 5 crore is a lot for just that certain part of the game, whether they view him for leadership potential as well, and then even add in his batting as well. So I think it's a fair price at the start of an auction for someone of his skill set.
Wasim, 5 crore Ashwin to Rajasthan.
Yeah, I think somebody with a big stature as good as Ashwin, I think he deserves that price. Being a marquee player, I think, and he comes into the first set, so players are the franchise are going to go for him. So I think fair price.
GS.
I thought he'll touch 7, but looks like a lot of teams are not bidding. Maybe they're all keen on certain other players. That's where the order becomes very important. If maybe Ashwin had come slightly later, teams would have maybe got him at a slightly higher price. But yeah, that's basically where you come in. The auction matters a lot. I think he's coming too early. So people obviously want to cover your other spots before you go into your finger spinners. So fair price. I think in our preview show, we did call 4 to 7 for Ashwin. So I think it's a fair price.
All right. Well, as we speak, the Australian Test captains popped up. Pat Cummins in the news for reasons other than cricket, unfortunately. A bit of a mess at what's gone on in the departure of Justin Langer and that saga. But Cummins is on a high price for the last couple of IPLs since he was picked up for the kind of money he was by KKR. Price stays the same, goes up. What do you reckon is Pat Cummins' value in IPL cricket, Dan Vittori? We know he's a fine cricketer. Not quite sure if he's ticked all the IPL boxes just yet, though.
No, I think teams will see him at his best, and I think he, at his best is one of the best bowlers in world cricket. The issues that franchise will have is that he missed the start of this tournament. He's Australian captain. He's going to be expected to play every game, and so therefore, where does that leave him placed come IPL time? And we've seen it before with Australian fast bowlers how they tend to sit out or remove themselves from IPLs because of the workload that they have. So there's no greater workload than the captain fast bowler of an Australian team. So I think franchise will be aware of that. That doesn't mean that he won't get a good price, but I can't see him going to the sort of the 15 that he went to. But even double figures, I don't think he'll get to 10 crore this time around.
Just under 6 at the moment for his existing or his former side. Now we can call them KKR. So they're interested at 5.75 crore. Interestingly, they've already retained 2 overseas players. So we'll have to see if they indeed go with Pat Cummins, paid good money for him. In some ways, it almost compelled them to play Pat Cummins and only got in the services of Lockie Ferguson once there were injuries to the rest of the overseas contingent. So 625, 650, bid goes up. JS, we know he's going to be touring Pakistan around the time of the IPL along with the Australian team. That perhaps changes the equation a little bit because if you're looking at him as a captaincy candidate, may not be there for the start of a big season.
Yeah, so I don't think he will be a captaincy candidate purely for even his availability is always going to be in doubt. But I think from a pure fast bowling, and we saw a lot of his batting skills last time around. He hit those really big sixes, so he's pretty handy. You can even play him at number 7, so that kind of makes him an even more interesting proposition. So I think the 8 to 10 seems to be a fair estimate for Pat Cummins. So we'll have to wait and see. But so far, it's been a bit conservative. I would generally see.
Yes, Dan.
I think I was going to say he's sold, but I thought franchises would want to get him up to around 10 crore because then they know he'll turn up. If it's a little bit low, then there's reasons for him not to turn up.
Come on. We what we do know is that they made it very clear. George Bailey, the Australian selector, former IPL captain himself for Punjab, has already said that they're going to play for Australia first. There's no two ways about it. So I think it's taken out of their hand. Now we do have a sell. I think 725. Has he gone back to KKR for that price? I think those are the pictures that I got. So 725 back to KKR. Interesting. You already have Andre Russell and Sunil Narayan as two overseas players. So let's get a reaction on that. Wasim, Pat Cummins to KKR, 7.25.
I think he was never going to go at the same price as 15. It can only happen in a smaller auction, but I think obviously again a very fine bowler. Whenever he's available, he's going to be handy. He's handy at number 7, number 8. He gives you wickets up front, so definitely a good buy.
What do you make of that match, GS, going back to a KKR?
Well, I think continuity, like all of us have been mentioning, continuity is important, and teams are happy to give it away to some other team. And I expected a little more bidding from the new franchises for Cummins, but still I see the old timers still kind of dominating the auction. Maybe some nerves for the new teams, I don't know. But I would have thought that Cummins, they could go for slightly more price. But yeah, maybe something about availability is always going to be an issue.
Yeah, that's
Delhi have been pretty keen on buying back their core so far. They bid for Dhawan, they bid for Ashwin, they've lost both. Now they're bidding for Rabada. I think we discussed that, right? They are going to be one of the big losers from this auction, the way the sets have come out. They're losing by quite a few of their key members, and if Nokia is injured, it's going to be a very hard auction for them. So they should go all out for one player. We have waiting. I think it might be Rabada, or we have to wait and watch which player among the 4 they're going to retain, because Iyer they're not going to get.
Okay, let's just keep it. I'm going to keep it to the players, of course, that have gone. We'll wait to see what Rabada goes for. I'm going to come to Dan on Pat Cummins. It also interestingly shows us the first franchise that retained 4 players that were willing to shell 7 crore plus on an overseas player. So maybe KKR are not looking at having a lot of money to go after a Kishan or an Avesh Khan later or a Harshal Patel. They probably think they're going to get outgunned anyway. So what do you make of that approach from KKR? They're now down to 40 or less than 40 crore on a balance, Dan?
It's an interesting take on it. I think it is about the continuity, knowing Brendan, that he'll want to keep a team together, and once again they will sort of put themselves in a similar image to what CSK has done and Mumbai has done, and trying to keep a team together. They made the final. They worked themselves back from almost being last on the table, so they want to reward that group of players that did so well for them. So I see this as a continuity play, a loyalty in some ways play. To keep everyone back together and make sure they can have a similar sort of squad.
All right. Well, Kagiso Rabada has bid, as we discuss. Pat Cummins going to KKR, going back to KKR, is now touched 8.25 crores. So he's right up there with Shikhar Dhawan. The Punjab Kings have entered. So Punjab Kings have entered here. And one thing I think, Wasim, that was being critiqued of the Punjab Kings was that experienced overseas fast bowler who does them a job at the dead. They've tried Richardson and Meredith, and Chris Jordan came in. Number of players were tried. Rabada at 9 crore as Punjab have entered. So you think whenever Punjab enter now, they're likely to just get him?
Probably, because they've got a very large purse. Even though last time they had a big purse, they still didn't use the 20 crore they had. So this time probably they would want to build a solid team. They've had Jai Richardson and Riley Meredith, somebody who's not had a very good experience at the IPL. Even Sheldon Cottrell, for that matter, they bought him at a very high price. So they would now probably be going at somebody who's had experience, who's led an attack in other franchise. So we might see them interested in Rabada.
9.25 looks like Punjab have almost secured the services of Kagiso Rabada. Interesting if he does get in there. We know there are questions still on Rabada's availability, but it's happened. Jonty Rhodes, who's sitting in the Punjab Kings stable, on that Punjab Kings stable, so has picked up the services of his compatriot. Anil Kumble has secured another buy, and that tells us something about what Punjab are likely to do now, Dan, at 9.25. That trims their purse down already to around 54 crore. So they're almost within range of the teams that came into this franchise with the least amount of money.
I suppose as predicted, and I don't know if Jez can do this at the same time as he's watching these things, but I'll be fascinated to know what the highest price Mumbai or CSK have paid for an overseas fast bowler, because I think this is where the franchise who are chasing their tails can go wrong, is that they spend big for overseas fast bowlers. And we know Kagiso Rabada is a fantastic bowler, incredible cricketer, but it's possibly not the way to build a team. It's possibly not the way to build the mainstay of your core. And I don't think you'll see Mumbai or Chennai spend that big on an overseas fast bowler.
Very interesting, GS.
Yeah, Dan, I have the answer for that. So the highest player which they have actually gone, CSK and Mumbai, are actually K. Gautam and Krunal Pandya, which is less than 10 crores in terms of Indian. So overseas is not even close. Overseas highest is Sam Curran. I think once CSK went in one of the smaller auctions, and Mumbai, I think it was Nathan Coulter-Nile.
Nathan Coulter-Nile went for 8 crore, and that was at a time when they essentially had to just throw the rest of their purse out.
Yeah, so the highest players they've actually gone so far are uncapped players like Krunal and K. Gautam are the ones they've spent. They've never spent over 10 for any of the players in an auction itself. So you're spot on. And Rabada's numbers also, to be very honest, when you look at maybe Dan and Wasim can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of his wickets have come in the death when people have tried to hit. He's not taken many top order wickets. When I was looking at the numbers, yes, he's a strike bowler. He's intimidating. He's won 2 super overs for his respective franchise, which shows he can bowl under pressure. But he's conceded 29 sixes when I saw in the last 2 seasons, which is the joint most with Yuzvendra Chahal. So 29 sixes for the lead fast bowler, irrespective of what he does in the test format. Like Wasim said, overseas players come here with a different purpose. They don't come here to kind of build their career and stuff like that. So even I'm with the experts, I don't think people pay quite a lot for overseas quicks, which is not required.
No, I think there are 2 things here. One is whether Rabada is worth that price, looking at the dynamic of the auction and building a team. And the second, a cricketing point on whether Rabada, the bowler, is the kind of bowler you pay for. I think the skill set of Rabada isn't in doubt. He's won a purple cap. GS makes the point. Delhi Capitals also did not bowl him a lot with the new ball in the last couple of overs. They kept him for a middle to end sort of phase, and they allowed for other bowlers to bowl with the new ball at the time. But all right, let me get a reaction from Wasim. Jaffer seems to be almost a slightly hesitant call by GS as well as Dan that that's a lot of money to spend on Rabada. Could have used that for an Indian player. Wasim, your thoughts?
I think looking at the way Punjab is approaching the auction, I felt that with the past couple of years experience, I feel they have felt that a lot of uncapped players, they had to play a lot of uncapped players with Arshdeep, Harpreet Brar and what's his name? The opener, the Punjab opener, the other opener when KL was injured. So I think this time around they're going with a strategy of picking somebody who's played and done well at the IPL. Even if they have to shell out a lot of money, I think they're willing to do that. So I think they are going with that kind of experience. They don't want to get players who haven't got an experience. So I think they are going to build their franchise this year with a lot of experienced players who have done well. I think that is the strategy I feel they're going with.
You think, GS, that this would pretty much, as Trent Bolt's name has come up, so at 5.75, Mumbai Indians have raised their paddle for the first time in this auction. So they're also looking to get some of their older players back. You think familiarity and whatnot. Shane Bond is still very much around with that franchise. So 7.25 crore and counting, as Rajasthan and Mumbai are in a bid for Bolt, which I'll come back to. But do you think Punjab spending this sort of money early on, would that in some way be music to the ears of Mumbai or other franchises who were hoping that, that balance purse doesn't come to bite them as some of the other players come in later on?
I think they're okay because they've covered 2 important slots, Dhawan and Mayank in the top, and you have Arshdeep as a death bowler, and you have Rabada at the top and the death. So, look, everybody's focusing on the first 11. So for the first 11 point of view, they've got 4 players with 54 crores remaining, which is fair. I think that's the way to go. Now, what's more important is they don't splurge another 10, 12 on another overseas player. Now their overseas recruits have to be a bit more cheaper and maybe look and focus on building that middle order 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with some Indians. So I don't know which franchise keeping money for Shreyas Iyer, though Punjab's not going for Shreyas Iyer that much.
I can almost certainly say now with what's happened that the Sunrisers are very keen on Shreyas Iyer because that's their That's been their Achilles heel. They've not got what they needed from Manish Pandey, from Vijay Shankar, and the younger players. So I expect them to really come in for Shreyas Iyer. This is just music for them if they had to bite it out. And he is a captaincy candidate in the absence of Williamson. So 8 crore at 775, Mumbai Indians still were interested in Trent Bolt. The minute it touched 8 for the Rajasthan Royals, they backed out. So sticking to what Dan and GS have said, they don't pay a lot of money for overseas fast bowlers, even if it is someone who's been successful for them like Trent Bolt. So Bolt has gone to Rajasthan Royals. Shreyas Iyer has come up. I'm going to come to that in a second. But Bolt to Rajasthan Royals to already add to our Ashwin that they've picked up the Royals. Dan, your thoughts at 8 crore?
Once again, I mean, he's just a fantastic bowler, and I think his record at the IPL is better than Rabada's. And so, therefore, how do you balance up the fact that you're prepared to go to 9 crore for Rabada and only 8 for Bolt? But still to the point that the good franchises, I don't think, spend this much amount of money on overseas fast bowlers. And it's pure fast bowlers. It's not the all-rounders. It's not the Bravo or the Sam Curran who can offer a little bit more with the bat. Even Cummins and Coulter-Nile can. Rabada and Bolt are just purely fast bowlers, very good fast bowlers, but that's what they bring to the table.
Ashwin and Bolt for Rajasthan Wasim, who had retained 3 out-and-out batters, keeper batters as well, but they needed to make their bowling from scratch at this auction, and they've spent 13 crore from their balance already on Ashwin and now Trent Bolt. Thoughts on Bolt at 8 crore?
Yeah, as I said, I expected Bolt to go on a higher price. So is Quinton de Kock when he comes on later on. But I think he's somebody who gives you wicket up front. He's somebody who you bank on in all conditions, and especially up front in the power play. So he's a proven performer, and like Dan said, that he's got a better record than Rabada. So he obviously deserves that price.
Shreyas Iyer has popped up. GS, we're keeping an eye on it, but make sense of the Bolt call. 8 crore, you think fair values those from what we've seen Rabada go for? Bolt has been impressive in the IPL last few years.
Yeah, again, you need to build a team around a player like Bolt. You had Bumrah at the other end, so people had to kind of take their chances against Bolt. He gets those early balls to swing, which troubled a lot of players. He's more a designated power play bowler than a death bowler. His death stats are not great. But Rajasthan have now slowly building that good bowling attack. They have an Ashwin, they have a Trent Bolt, different skill sets. It's a fair price again. From an auction perspective, like Dan said, I believe that certain skill sets shouldn't be paid overpaid. So in that aspect, Bolt, when you compare with Rabada, I think teams Rajasthan will be a much happier team than a Punjab, if I can put it that way.
Okay,
and I
what we
think
are
one of
seeing,
the IPL
yes,
is going to be
please.
played in Mumbai. So, Bolt is going to be a good buy. I mean, those conditions will definitely help him up front. So it's worth his price.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a fact to keep in mind as well. All chat that's going to be played essentially in Maharashtra, maybe Mumbai and Pune. So waiting on confirmation from that. But you think the IPL franchises would have heard something at least on those lines? Very curious. The Delhi Capitals all smiles. They tried to bring back a Shreyas Iyer, but it was a battle between the two minimal balances, right, in KKR and Delhi. And it touched about 9.5, and that's when they pulled out. So at 975, Shreyas is already going to be the most expensive player so far. Interestingly, the Knight Riders are interested here. So and he's touched double digits. So 10 crore, first player to touch 10 crore today. No surprises at all. We expected Shreyas Iyer to have a big payday the minute his name was in that marquee set. And at 10.5, it looks like we have the first of the 2 new franchises jumping in. So you have the Gujarat Titans now, the Ahmedabad franchise, that have come in for Shreyas Iyer, who of course already have Hardik Pandya, Rashid Khan, and Shubman Gill. GS, the new franchises have stepped in.
Yeah, I was surprised. Lucknow, I didn't see too much of Lucknow so far. Chennai seems to be having some nice sweets and chilling in a corner.
Yeah, have they come? I can't see them.
GS is loving that. GS is absolutely loving that.
So, Iyer was always going to be a battle between KKR and RCB, is what we kind of always discuss because of the captaincy thing. Now we know Punjab are out of it. So, again, I personally, if you ask me, this is paying way more than what he's actually should be valued for. He's still just he's not a proven captain. Yes, in the sense that he had a team around, he had Ricky Ponting around. Again, I would like to ask Dan and Wasim how much that makes a difference. Shreyas Iyer with a coach like Ponting, or Shreyas Iyer just leave him to captain himself. We don't know. And from a batting perspective, middle order perspective, he's not like
Right.
really won a lot of
We've got a
matches.
sale. We've got a sale. So let me break that. Sorry, GS, but let me break that up now. 12.25 to the Knight Riders. So he's going to Kolkata, who do not have a confirmed captain just yet. So that door remains open. 12.25 crore. Shreyas Iyer to the Kolkata Knight Riders, further reducing their purse. Wasim Jaffer, thoughts?
I think obviously he's gone way above. I feel that he would have gone, but again, it's only for that captain. Teams are buying him as a captainship material, and obviously the face of the team. Like you said, I also felt that few other teams would be interested in him. But Jayesh mentioned a very valid point that Shreyas Iyer with Ponting as a coach and Shreyas Iyer with somebody else, definitely will make a lot of difference, because I think Ponting helped him a lot to become a decent captain. So that is going to be interesting to see whoever is the coach. How does he operate if at all he becomes a captain?
Right. We do know that, Delhi themselves did not restore faith in Shreyas once he became available after injury. They stuck with Pant. And we also know that they were, Dan, somewhat hamstrung by Owen Morgan's form, even though he is a wonderful captain and whatnot. But Shreyas Iyer has gone there. They effectively have broken the bank on him. Looking at where they stood, the Knight Riders, they now have just 28.5 crore left in the kitty. And they've picked up Shreyas Iyer, you think, essentially to address the problem they had last year. But would you have done the same?
Look, I think it's a fair price. I think for the way that people talked about Shreyas Iyer and Ishan Kishan, where they're going to break the bank, would they get to 15, 16 crore? I think Kolkata will be extremely happy with that, because it fulfills that middle order batting position and potentially fills the captaincy. And to Wasim's point around how Ponting worked with Shreyas at Delhi, I think it'll be very similar to how Brendan McCullum works with him there. If he is going to be the captain, I think it solves a lot of issues for KKR, but they've got a lot of work to do with a small purse coming up. So maybe they'll sit back on those two buys, both leadership guys, and Shreyas Iyer and Paddy Cummins, and think, well, we've got that covered. Now we can just fill in some junior players to complement those big selections.
Yeah, that's the simple question you have to ask GS of KKR now, just in terms of what they've left themselves to do. There obviously would have been a plan, and that plan clearly was that we're willing to spend as much as 12.5 crore for Shreyas Iyer, which essentially means now they've got 6 players and a balance purse of 28.5. They've got Cummins to add to their existing overseas contingent. So they need to make a team of another 12, 13, 14 players, and on an average, you're looking at 2 crore a player.
Yeah, so the thing is, that's where I think they would have planned for this, right? 14 crores, they might have budgeted for Shreyas Iyer. They can go for one more really big buy, and then you have to start playing conservative. And I'm fairly sure that's the overseas scouting, overseas recruits would have been someone who they know they'll get for maybe at the base price or 2-3 crores. So that will be their strategy now. They have Naren, Russell, Cummins. They have like 6 members of their first 11 ready. So they just need to fill another 5 more slots. If you look at the first 11, that's how teams generally think. Fill up the first 11 and then look for backup. So in that way, I think KKR are kind of sorted. So they will buy a lot of cheaper buys towards the end.
Yeah, good chance. That we also know KKR as a franchise last few years have relied on strong 11s as such. Don't mind spending a lot of money on players that will walk into your 11 and not necessarily, and then have a lot of young players in their team. There's not a lot of experienced players that tend to sit on the benches of the Knight Riders. Mohammad Shami's bid, GS thought maybe he'll miss out given the order, given what teams are looking for, given what is to follow in terms of Indian fast bowlers, but he's already at 5.75 crore, and the new franchises also seem to be in. So Sanjay Bangar's interested in him. So Bangalore are keen on someone to partner Mohammad Siraj with the ball, and you've also got the Gujarat Titans interested in him. So that's the 2 franchises currently in a bid. 5.75 and counting for Mohammad Shami. G-Stats, does that add up? 625
now? Yeah, I did mention that I didn't say he'll go for the low price. I said he'll be one of the lowest among the marquee sets. Obviously, Ashwin is the lowest now, and we'll have to see. Just look at coming back to Dan's point, Mohammad Shami and a Pat Cummins, right? I don't know. I would like to ask the panel, who would you pay more for?
Okay. Wasim, Mohammad
I,
Shami or
I
Pat
would I
Cummins?
would obviously go for Pat Cummins because what he gives. I mean, if he's available, definitely Pat Cummins. Gives you more than what Mohammad Shami does, without a doubt.
Dan?
Yeah, agree. I mean, we just got to factor in the availability. That always can tend to hamper the top line Australian fast bowlers. But I think their schedule probably allows them to play more than it has in the past. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of Pat Cummins in these next 3 years, which means it's a fantastic buy.
All right. So Mohammad Shami is done. He's been sold. I'm just going to wait for confirmation. Anyone pick that up exactly?
To the
I missed it.
Gujarat Titans for 6.25.
6.25 Gujarat Titans. So Shami is going to Gujarat Titans, 6.25 crore. Already have Hardik Pandya and Rashid Khan along with Shubman Gill. So that's their first out-and-out fast bowler that they've picked up at 6.25 crore. Let's get thoughts on that. Wasim Jaffer, 6.25, Shami to Gujarat.
Well, Ashish Nehra loves Mohammad Shami, so there's no surprises there.
You should have told us before the show.
Yeah. So there's no surprises, but again, a good buy. Somebody who's up front, and he's one of those guys who gives you wickets. He can easily make the opposition 30 for 3 in the power play on his good days. So a very good buy for an Indian bowler.
Yeah, and they did come in with a decent amount of money as well. You think Hardik and Rashid Khan, Dan, they've got two of the most in-demand T20 players in the world. Shami, good addition to that?
I think so, and I think these players can really achieve their value depending on how they're used. And if Mohammad Shami is used as a strike bowler in the power play and then as an attacking weapon from sort of 8 to 14 overs, then that value will prove itself. It's when he has to bowl at the back end of the death that we've seen him get hit on quite a few occasions, and that will devalue what they pay for him. But him as an attacking bowler up front, like I think Wasim said, having a team 30 for 3 is invaluable, and he can do that 5 or 6 times throughout the course of a tournament.
Yes, quick comment from you, and then we'll move on to Faf du Plessis. Shami to the Gujarat Titans.
Yeah, fair. This is exactly what I kind of expected, not to break the bank and kind of one of the. You have a lot of options basically. You don't need to spend so much on a player. Yeah, obviously very skilled, and some teams want him more than the other teams. So fair. It's a fair price.
Okay. Now, while Faf du Plessis is being bid on, and this is the first time that CSK, they are at the table, they are in the room, have praised their paddle. So they again are looking for someone who's done well for them, familiar, as well as proven performer, leading run scorer among the overseas players in last year's IPL, Faf du Plessis. And he's already bid at 6.5 crore very quickly as Delhi and Chennai fight out for him. But I guess before we get to Faf, let me just ask Dan what we're making of some of the franchises in the early few players. We thought Punjab may or may not go hard. They've gone hard. Hyderabad, 68 crore, absolutely quiet. Haven't gone for anybody just yet. What are we reading as to how they're looking at this auction?
I think apart from the discussion that we've had around spending a lot on overseas fast bowlers, it feels like all the franchises do have a plan, and it feels like they are in control. We've seen a number of obviously teams pulled out, and then other teams come in. So it does look like it's going to script for how franchise want it to, and I think they'll be happy with that. So it's the next stages that some of these I suppose not as well known commodities, whether how hard they'll push for them, and that'll define how a lot of these teams' auctions go. But so far, I think teams have been restrained, which is not always the case.
Okay, RCB are in business. 7 crore as Faf du Plessis goes to Bangalore. Interestingly, Faf du Plessis to Bangalore at 7 crore. So it's 5 to 6 times the amount that he's managed to go for. 1.6 was the price that Chennai had a bargain, surely got him for all these years. And he's going to go now to potentially partner Virat Kohli at RCB. GS, thoughts?
I think it's a captaincy option, like Dan just mentioned. Faf for RCB fits that. He's captained obviously very well, and he's a quiet customer, and he's been very successful for Chennai. Again, change of culture. How they play, I don't know. We've seen that problem happening a lot of times. The likes of Watson has mentioned publicly that he found it pretty uncomfortable at RCB compared to Chennai. Same with Moeen Ali. So this this transition is very key. So that's where we need to wait and watch. But Ronak, one slight problem when you look at that RCB top lineup now is you have two overseas guys fixed right at the tops, right? So Faf and Maxwell and Kohli. In the top three, you have two overseas. We saw what happened at Sunrisers. So now RCB have to get their act right, get a good Indian bowling attack sorted for them, and maybe get a Jason Holder as an all-rounder in the spot to kind of build at 11. If they're going out and out for an overseas quick, they might come back to the same problem that's haunted them for quite some time, having a top three.
Dan Vittori is very familiar. Dan Vittori is familiar with that problem. Now, I probably proceed 7 crores. I'm thrilled for him because he's been such a performer in the IPL. But I'm curious on the match. You wanted to look for somebody at RCB A to potentially be a captain option. I wonder if Faf is seriously a captain option. Hasn't really captained as much in the IPL. And two, of course, someone to partner Virat Kohli at the top of the order. We know that Kohli is also finding his own sort of, lean patches of sorts, and we needed somebody to really go hard with them at the top. Could it have been a David Warner or Quinton de Kock? 7 crore Faf du Plessis. What do you make of the match, Dan? Faf and RCB, and of course, GS's point that Maxwell's already there.
I think it's a fair price in terms of what he's done over the last year to 18 months in T20 cricket, not only the IPL but all around the world. So I think his value. We talk about Shikhar Dhawan's fitness. I think Faf is a rival to that. We know that he's going to age well, even though I think he's 38 maybe. So I don't think there'll be any issues around the length of the contract and him being able to play that. The fit, it's always about the fit, isn't it? And that's the discussion that franchises are having. Do they see him as the captaincy potential? And that may overrule anything that they've thought about. But it's also a comfort level that a lot of the times RCB have had those overseas batsmen in the top order. The last couple of years have gone pretty well for them. What it means for Padikkal is more interesting, whether that they can continue on with him or they move on from that and just leave Virat and Faf to open the order. But it's fit. It's all about fit, and that remains to be seen how they utilise them within that playing 11.
I mean, it seems unlikely that they will go for Devdutt Padikkal now. It has been an interesting candidate to retain, but they decided to keep Mohammad Siraj, or we don't know, maybe Padikkal wanted out and wanted to go into the auction. As we speak, Quinton de Kock, former RCB man, someone who you think would have matched really well with in that setup, but of course left and was traded to the Mumbai Indians, where he's been so successful. 6.25 and counting as the Delhi Capitals are interested. I've seen the Gujarat Titans put their hand up. The Lucknow Super Giants, in fact, put their hand up. So Gautam Gambhir is strongly advocating, and you think he has a strong input here along with Andy Flower to the Super Giants. So they're looking at Quinton de Kock, who's currently at 6.75 crore. He's coming late in the marquee set, GS, but we did look at de Kock as someone who could really be a big signing today.
Yeah, I personally thought he will go upwards of 10 plus because overseas he's fully available. He's retired from Test cricket. This is a very, 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 very good steal.
Okay, this is
an excellent steal by Lucknow partnering KL Rahul.
I tell you what, Gautam Gambhir doesn't smile much. We've had him a number of times now, but if you take his mask off right now, I can't help but think there would be a smile, because between him and Sanjeev Goenka, the owner of the Lucknow team, they have picked up Quinton de Kock for 6.75 crore. And GS's immediate reaction is steal. Dan with the sold of excitement. So let's get quick reactions. Dan, 6.75. de Kock to the Super Giants.
Fantastic buy. I mean, it just complements KL Rahul, takes him out of that need for keeping, which may free up his captaincy. All those little things that could go on, but most of all is his batting at the top of the order, left and right hander. It's a fantastic buy, probably the best buy of the auction so far.
Wasim?
I think the best buy of the auction, like Dan said, I expected him to broke the bank, but a very, very good buy for Super Giants, and again, very good opening partnership for KL and Quinton. So fantastic buy.
GS.
Yeah, I was completely wrong. I really thought he'll go about 10 plus. I still can't get my heads to why people are not bidding for de Kock so much. SRH, for example, don't have a keeper. A lot of teams don't have, and de Kock and Rahul make a pretty good pair at the top. And you have a backup keeper, and Rahul can focus on leading now, I guess. So, excellent by Andy Flower and team.
Very curious to why perhaps Mumbai Indians weren't interested to at least raise that price, if not more. We thought Mumbai Indians would be keen on a Quinton de Kock. Can only assume that they've really set their sights on Ishan Kishan, which is a dangerous tactic given the amount of teams that will still have a decent purse over them if Hyderabad continue to be quiet here. In fact, Sunrisers Hyderabad could have been keen on a Quinton de Kock, lots of money to spend, someone to do David Warner's role. But that's not happening. David Warner's come up as we speak, by the way, and surprise, Chennai are interested in him. So fits a lot of categories, doesn't he? David Warner. I love it. I'm already imagining him in yellow, more in yellow than you already have seen David Warner. But yeah, de Kock, it's a stunner. One thing I will ask Dan Vittori about de Kock, though, is he's an interesting player to try and get the best out of. You think over the years he's matured, he's been captain. He also now retired from Test cricket, Dan. But while he's been a performer in a good side, a winning side. Do you see teams still finding, a challenge in trying to get the best out of de Kock in an IPL?
No, well, I think you're right in assuming that when you're in a winning team, everything just falls into place, and those characters who you potentially worry about, you never worry about because they do their job and they understand what they need to do, and they're given a set role. And I think that's where someone like a Quinton de Kock will work. He's opening the batting, he's obviously keeping, he's a senior player, he's helping out in the field, he's a vice captain in some ways, and he's a leader. And once you have that role, it's defined, then I think you get the best out of those players. When you go to a franchise who potentially is chopping and changing, doesn't know what to do, their overseas players become expendable at the selection table because they're trying to find the right balance. That's when you lose some of particularly the high caliber overseas players who are used to settled environments, who are used to consistency, and when they don't get it, they don't thrive. And so I think as long as everything's settled, like it has been for de Kock in the last couple of years at Mumbai, I think you'll still see the best out of him. It's such an important skill set that he brings to a T20 team.
Okay, 625. The price for David Warner, 6.25 crore. Guess where he's going? He's going to Delhi. What thrilled to have him. They're jumping all over the moon, right? So Delhi Capitals are absolutely thrilled. They've got a second overseas now along with Anrik Nokia. They've got someone to partner Prithvi Shaw, perhaps replace Shikhar Dhawan at the top. Very interesting match. I could have thought of a lot of other franchises that would have been keen on a David Warner more than Delhi Capitals, who already have their captain in place in the form of Rishabh Pant. So let's get a reaction on David Warner. JS, you seem surprised.
Yeah, Warner getting 6.25 and Shreyas Iyer getting 13. Some things just don't add up in the IPL auction. De Kock getting 6.25. This is both have been really big steals. Delhi getting Warner for 6.25. I think there's been some negative PR about Warner. There's no other reason that he's not being bid so much. He's a class act. Not many players have scored 500 runs season after season after season. 5 seasons, it's not easy at all. Sometimes people take these performances for granted if he doesn't do one season well. I think what Warner can do, not many overseas players have even come close in the history of the IPL. It's a shocker to me, and they've just gifted Delhi a player which they would have gone outside this marquee set with nothing, remember, in spite of bidding so much. And now they've put something in place for Delhi. So this really has made Delhi's day. No wonder they were so happy. And de Kock and Warner both have been like very, very surprising buys.
All right, 625. We thought Warner is this big captaincy candidate, Wasim, that some teams may want to go hard for a David Warner. He could lead. Punjab might have been interested in him. He could have fit there quite nicely. He could have also made an argument for RCB, even KKR. But this is where he's landed up now. Thoughts, Warner, to the Delhi Capitals?
Yeah, I think it's probably the biggest steal compared to even Quinton de Kock, because I thought, David Warner, captainship material, not many teams are going for him. And again, like Jay said very rightly, not many overseas players have got the record which David Warner has. So, and the performance that is put in for Hyderabad, they are not the teams like Mumbai or Chennai, and for him to perform for them and win a championship for them, and not many teams are interested, I feel very, very surprised. But a great buy for Delhi.
How much of that just down Dan to where he's come up? He was the last player to come up in the marquee set. Is it as simple as that, or could you still have seen at least a couple of more crore, if not something even more than that for David Warner, or maybe to a different franchise? I'm very curious with the Delhi combination.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I would have broken the bank for David Warner just because of what GS laid out. It's just a performance after performance, and he's still a great fielder. He's obviously a leader, so you combine those things, and you know what you're going to get every year. And I think that it's been incredibly impressive how consistent he's been. The thing I suppose I'm slightly surprised about is that we talked about franchises having their plans before before the auction started, they were particularly being heavily planned for the marquee set because that's the easiest to plan for in a lot of ways because you know what's coming up. Where the teams were actually able to think on their feet and say, David Warner is a great buy at this price. Can we potentially change where we're heading, where we're thinking to be able to be in the mix for him? Same with Quinton de Kock. I think why couldn't teams have just been a little bit more fluid with what they're thinking to be able to get two quality players, two proven performers who year in, year out offer so much to the franchise. So that's been slightly surprising, but I also think teams are probably rigid in what they want to do. This now they get a chance to reset, think about it, complain, wish they did something different, and then see if they can come back and remedy it in the next set.
All right, let's get a reaction from GS as well. What we've seen of the marquee set, what's worked, what's not. What you understood from this, GS?
I think it's been a very smart auction, I would say, from all teams. Pretty conservative. I can imagine why. You have a lot of good players coming up. People maybe, like we had kind of discussed, it's good to buy a lot of players, but people shouldn't get too excited as well, paying and breaking the bank. So just 110 crore plus buy, which is in Shreyas Iyer, which again, if two teams wanted him as captain, it was only RCB and KKR going all out, if I remember right, which is why his price went where it is. But otherwise, it's kind of spread. We've seen Chennai, Mumbai, and Hyderabad. Chennai want an opener. They bid for Faf, they bid for Warner. So clearly now they'll have to go all the way down to find some other opener somewhere. So it's been an interesting, smart auction, I would say, in certain aspects. All other teams have some thought which they need to buy later. Set 2, 3, 4 are very interesting sets. You have your Deepak Chahars, Yuzvendra Chahal, Ishan Kishan. So maybe a lot of people want to buy 2, 3 players from that slot. So it'd be good to see the purses and see who's likely to get those kind of players.
All right, Wasim, your summation. How much has this marquee set surprised you, and how much of it do you think has gone according to plan?
I think it did surprise me with the last two auction. Quinton and David Warner. I think other teams could have came in and probably have made the prices up. I think Delhi got a bargain, and so did the team for Quinton. So those were. I mean, I can't get my head around that Faf got more money than David Warner. Somebody who's got such a fine record in the IPL. I mean, I don't see anybody who's got such a record. Apart from obviously Rohit and Virat, but him going so cheaper did really surprise me. But I think obviously Shreyas Iyer is a captainship material, so obviously he's gone for that price because of that. But other than that, I think most of the players did get what they deserve.
I mean, I'm with you in that 100% on that. Warner's 35, Faf is 37 for whatever it's worth. If you question longevity, he's fit, David Warner. Lovely point that Jace makes about this. Slightly negative publicity that's gone around. We knew Sunrisers would not go for him, and that's understandable. There was clearly a falling out of sorts, but we did expect other franchises to still hold what is certainly an all-time great player in David Warner of the IPL. He is one of the GOATs of the IPL. He'll make most all-time IPL 11s, but that's a summation of the marquee set. Shikhar Dhawan goes to Punjab to partner Mayank Agarwal. R. Ashwin is reunited with Josh Butler in the same team, so that should be fun for the Rajasthan Royals. Pat Cummins reunites with Kolkata. Join Andre Russell and Sunil Narayan as 3 overseas players already. Kagiso Rabada also at Punjab Kings. So that's an interesting call. Trent Bolt goes to Rajasthan. Shreyas Iyer, who Abhishek Nair would have had a serious input with from Mumbai to pick up for Kolkata Knight Riders. He could likely be their captain option. You've also got Mohammad Shami going to Gujarat. Ashish Nehra likes his fast bowlers, says Wasim Jaffer. Faf du Plessis goes to Bangalore, where he will presumably partner Virat Kohli at the top of the order. And Quinton de Kock to Lucknow in what's a lovely keeper-batter combination with KL Rahul, as those two are set to form what looks like a formidable partnership. And finally, David Warner to the Delhi Capitals, where you're going to see Warner and Prithvi Shaw, you'd think 1-2, and Rishabh Pant to follow at some point. Wow, that's some marquee set. So that's what we've got for you now, the marquee set. Now, we are going to stay with you. If you want a quick a reminder of where the balance purses are, I'll just run that for you in a second. So we know that a lot of money has been spent by Punjab Kings. Their advantage over the others has been reduced. So they have about 54.25 crore in their kitty. If we look at some of the other names as well, I've got Mumbai have been quiet. Hyderabad have been quiet. So they enjoy a serious advantage. Team that has spent a lot is KKR. So 28.5 is all they've got left. Let's get a comment from our panel on what we make of the franchises. Hyderabad and Mumbai have been quiet. Hyderabad enjoy now a serious advantage, GS, going into the rest of the auction?
Yeah, I just went through the list as we spoke, and Ishan Kishan seems to be going the Hyderabad way, I guess, because they have a clear advantage there. And again, in a way, I think it's smart. Yes, you want to buy as many players as possible, but you can still buy them. You still have very good players up to about till the uncapped set opens up, where I expect 10 plus valued players coming up. So I think it's fair. Maybe they're doing the smart things which we have all discussed about, not spending so much on an overseas fast bowler, not spending so much on a single Indian player like Shreyas Iyer. Maybe again, I would think an SRH, a Decock, or a Warner, not Warner, obviously, the Decock would have kind of done them a favor. He could have kept for them and opened and had some experience. I strongly thought SRH will go for Decock, but maybe that's what Ishan Kishan's going to. Maybe they've kept their plans tight and they're going to go all out for Ishan Kishan. So, so far, I think it's been. From a purse availability, SRH are at the advantage, but it's just a matter of one bid before they come back on track.
I mean, it's the contrasting approaches by the two teams, Dan, that went into the auction with the maximum balance purse. Punjab wanted to secure a couple of senior, experienced international pros. They've done that with Dhawan and Rabada, even though they've paid decent money for it. Hyderabad, who had the second highest balance purse, have decided to just stay quiet and use that advantage deeper into the auction. Thoughts?
Well, I think it simply lines up that Sunrisers want Ishan Kishan, Deepak Chahar, or Shadul Thakur, one of those, combination of those. So they've set their sights on those players. I mean, they'll be wishing that teams just bid away on all these other players, so that it makes it easier for them to come into it, and they can actually dominate the auction when they want those certain players. So, look, I think it's those players, and probably Chahal's the other one. I think that he'll be another player that Sunrisers will be desperate to fill that void of Rashid Khan. So look for the bidding more on those four players. Everything else could be relatively sedate till those players are out of the market.
All right. Let's look ahead now. Batting set number 1 about to come in. And this is, I think we're going to have 2 sets together now, if I remember the auction order correctly. So we're going to have, before there's another break, there's a brief break at the auction at the moment. So the teams are just regrouping. The tables are regrouping, have quick cup of tea. But we're going to have some capped batters followed by some capped all-rounders, Wasim. Let's talk about the capped batters now and what the appetite could be from franchises for players like Shimron Hetmeyer, David Miller, Devdutt Padikkal. So standout name in that you think is someone like Devdutt Padikkal. You've also got some Indian senior pros there. Suresh Raina, Robin Uthappa, Manish Pandey is there as well, along with Jason Roy and Steve Smith. Thoughts, Wasim, how much are you expecting batters to go now?
I'll be surprised. A lot of teams would go for Suresh Raina, with a big purse. That's one of my concerns, because he's hardly played any cricket. So whether the franchise want to spend on him that much, definitely the names that you've taken, Shimron Hetmeyer, definitely I feel he'll get decent money. The Indian batters, I feel they'll definitely, Devdutt Padikkal, Manish Pandey, they'll obviously have, will be in demand. So interesting. I think Jason Roy, again, he's an interesting player. The kind of 100 that he's got in PSL. Alex Hales, like JS said, he's a fine player, and I always get surprised that he doesn't get picked. So he'll be obviously in the radar. So all these guys, I feel, will be in demand, because they actually are the performance. They do play around a lot of franchise cricket. So I'm sure, apart from the Indian guys, so they'll be in demand without a doubt.
Right. Standout player, GS, in that set coming up, Padikkal?
Padikkal, but it's interesting to, again, maybe when we have time, we should try to see how many teams have openers. On top of my head, I'm not able to quickly figure.
Do that for you. Let's do that. We have some time. So we've got Ahmedabad, who've got Shubman Gill, right? Gujarat rather. Chennai have Ruturaj Gaikwad. Moeen Ali will bat in the top 3. So that's 2 opening slots already outright. Delhi Capitals with Warner and Prithvi Shaw seem all right. KKR, you think with Venkatesh Iyer, Sunil Narayan, whether that is the key, whether they need one more specialist bat. Shreyas Iyer, you think will bat 3 or 4. So you're still looking at 2. Lucknow have picked up Rahul and Quinton de Kock. They look all right. Mumbai Indians have only Rohit Sharma so far, though Surya Kumar Yadav has opened for them in the past. Unlikely that could happen again. Punjab have Mayank and Dhawan, so they're sorted. So we're still round 3. Samson, Butler, Yashasvi have Rajasthan covered. Kohli and Faf du Plessis have Bangalore covered. and you've only got Williamson so far for Sunrisers as an option, but he's batted lower in recent seasons. So you have about 5 to 6 first team slots, if we want to put it that way. Take it away. Yes.
Thanks, Ronak, for that. Yes, but there might be teams who want an overseas opening batter to partner an Indian batter, and also a left-right combination. So among the 5 left, we have to see if we can eliminate a couple more teams based on that, because right-left is a big deal. Having worked with franchises, that's something they always look to have at the top. Generally, it helps in kind of disrupting the opposition bowling. So Padikkal, yes, Padikkal, Jason Roy, both would be in demand. The way if Warner goes for 6.5, I think you can expect Roy to go slightly lower, I would think. So, or maybe teams have become smarter and realized Roy is the better T20 player right now. Who knows? But I think Roy is one person whom I think will go. Padikkal surely will have a lot of demand. I think Hetmeyer is an interesting one. A team like Punjab, they have Mayank and Dhawan already. Hetmeyer could be that perfect number 3 for them there. Delhi used him as a finisher. If they want, they could use him as a finisher as well. He's a good player of spin. Now you have to start seeing those qualities. How can a middle order who's a good player of spin? So a player like David Miller, I think he will go unsold or at base price maximum right now, and maybe they'll buy him back. Manish and Shimran Hetmeyer is what I'm looking forward to a lot. Manish Pandey especially always has had a lot of interest among IPL franchises. RCB needs someone in the middle order, but they also have a lot of similar players. Already I see Kohli and Faf opening, and then you have Maxwell. I don't know if they'll want to go for Manish Pandey there. Who knows? So Manish and Roy and Padikkal are the 3 interesting names I'm looking forward to see some good bids.
Interestingly, what about the Mumbai factor here, Wasim? Our franchise is thinking just short term for now. A lot of cricket to be played at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. If it all, that point that we're discussing, that the IPL will happen in Maharashtra goes through, suddenly would there be a greater appetite for some of these overseas power hitters, Jason Roy, maybe a David Miller, guys whose prices have reduced over the years? Could there be more interest from the franchises this year?
And possibly, and rightly so, because you are going to get very good wickets to bat on. Some the places where you'll have red soil, and there'll be a decent bounce. So Jason Roy and Alex Hales, they might be in demand. So I won't be surprised that Mumbai will take that route.
Manish Pandey is an interesting one, Dan. A lot of money was put on him from a team like Sunrisers. There was a lot of chat as well on whether he should have been at an opening position or a number 3 position. Tom Moody, who was with us one year when he wasn't with the Sunrisers, made an interesting point of how he's one of those players that somehow just seems to go off if he's not batting in a position that he likes, or it's temperamental. He sometimes wins you games and sometimes just goes firing blanks. What sort of expectation do you have from Manish Pandey right now, this time of his career?
I think he'll be popular. I think he's one of those almost reclamation projects that some franchises will love. They'll see that Sunrisers, to your point, potentially didn't bat him in the position that he wanted, and they'll convince themselves that if we can put him in the right place, that we will get the best out of him, and we'll see the Manish Pandey who warranted, was it 12, 13 crore? I'm not sure how much. It was a lot of money at some stage. So I do believe he'll be popular, and I like his style of play. I like him as a player. I like his temperament when he's in the right place, and also I think he's a good fielder. So there's a package there that I think franchises will convince themselves about, that as a domestic player in the right batting position, he can be of immense value to a franchise.
Following that set is the all-rounders. Now, how does that affect how teams might approach this? Harshal Patel is curiously in that list. JS Sotua, Krunal Pandya, Nitish Rana, Washington Sundar, and of course the big overseas names in that: Mitchell Marsh, Jason Holder, Shakib Al Hasan, Dwayne Bravo, and Wanindu Hasaranga. And I wonder if set 3 is going to dictate how franchises approach set 2.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, set 3, set 4 as well, where you have Deepak Chahar and Shardul Thakur. Then you have the spinners in set 5. So obviously, it looks like that's the set where people want to make a play, try to get 2 or 3 of those players. It would really enhance their chances, and a lot of teams can actually get it. It's a nice. You see KKR at one end, you see SRH at the other end, and you have 8 teams with a very, very similar purse. Not too much of a difference when you look at the pattern. So it's going to be exciting to see these bids, and very rarely you would see a set 3 and set 4 go for a lot of money consistently, and that's what's going to happen this time around. I think teams have cracked that, so they've kept some money there for that. So we'll have to see how whether teams are purposely raising the paddle for someone. It's important to see what type of players teams are bidding. Like I saw Chennai bidding for Faf, Chennai bid for Warner, which means they badly want an overseas opener. That's the thinking they have, right? So I think that would be their plan A. So we'll have to see if they go for Jason Roy maybe to partner with Ruturaj Gaikwad. So we'll have to start seeing patterns on what kind of players people are bidding. Andy Flower, they bid very openly for Quinton de Kock alone. I didn't really see them bid too much in other categories, which means they've identified certain players. And Andy Flower is I'm sure Wasim can add more light, having worked with him last season. Andy Flower has been very successful in the shorter formats. These small things help a lot because you're doing this day in and day out. You work for drafts for all the other leagues, so you kind of know which player and what you get from that particular player. So maybe Andy Flower has some very interesting names in store for the Lucknow franchise. He's calling the shots along with Gambhir, and you'll find some nice overseas buys. We need to go and look at what kind of players he's picked in his other team. A player like Tim David, for example, Andy Flower has picked him in at least 2 of the 3 franchises he's worked for. So maybe they know that he'll come in cheap. So these are patterns we need to watch out for, Ronak.
Wasim, anything to add to that? Andy Flower, amongst his many accomplishments, also now has one of leaving his Pakistan Super League franchise midway to attend an auction. But let's leave that.
I think it's an interesting point. He's a very smart. He's a very, very smart coach, Ronak. Obviously, like I said, he has also worked in a lot of franchises, and the franchises that he's worked for has played finals and won championship. So you've seen a lot of players who are going to be in the pool in the later half. So he does know that there are a lot of players available which won't be in too much demand. So you might get them very cheap. Bowlers like Naveenul Haq and Rahmatullah Gurbaz and like Tim David and all that. So all these players they are high quality players, but they are not too much in demand in IPL section. So I'm sure Andy Flower has those names in his head.
When you bring in experience from other leagues, Dan, there's always it's a catch-22, isn't it? You may have seen and worked with someone in a different league in the world. It doesn't always translate into success. Has that changed in any way, or is that still prevalent? And Andy Flower's working with franchises around the world, would like to pick up players that have been successful with him at Multan Sultans or other leagues.
No, I think it's definitely prevalent. I think you get a comfort level with certain players, particularly the overseas players, and first and foremost, you select them for their performance, but secondary, you select them because they can sit on a bench, that they'll add to the team, that they'll be forthcoming with advice, and they'll just generally be a good guy to have around the group. So I think when you have that familiarity with players, they will go towards them over other players. So I think it plays a big part, but it won't override trying to get the best possible players. I think it's just that little 5% factor that may add into a selection.
All right. Auction about to resume. Everyone's seated again. Let's get a quick prediction from this set. The batters set. Spoken a lot. Manish Pandey could be popular, says Dan Vittori. Suresh Raina. Wasim Jaffer says might just go without a bid at this point and maybe come back later tomorrow, the accelerated part. JS, give me a quick prediction from this one. Who do you think is going to cash in big time?
Padikkal.
Okay, Padikkal for you. Wasim, Padikkal standout player in this set for you?
I think so. I think there's that Padikkal for the kind of performances he's put in last 2 years. So he's going to be in demand.
All right, Dan, some overseas names there. Any of them interest you at all? Steve Smith, wonder what his value is these days in T20 cricket?
No, none of them interest me. I think it's Padikkal, but I'm fascinated to see what will happen with Manish Pandey. I think that'll be interesting to see the franchises who see value in them. I think we'll have a number of bidders at a lower price, but who's actually going to take the chance to go a bit higher?
I think even Jason Roy, Ronak, could be of a lot of interest. He's been, again, he plays across all leagues and he's going to be available. So I think Roy and Padikkal be interesting. Or, I don't think anybody else.
Played well for the Sunrisers when he came in as a backup player in what was a forgettable season for them last season, Jason Roy. Also in that list is Robin Uthappa, who might have breathed some new life into the interest that franchises may have on him. We've worked with Robin, of course, since that IPL final. And as a player of the match in a most recent IPL final, surely there'll be a temptation from franchises, especially given it's a 10-team auction. So Uthappa's in this set as well. So we will find out, as the first name to come out from this set is Manish Pandey. So this should be fun. Sit back. Always important. The timing of when you come out. Base price 1 crore. The Pandey story. He's got a lot of fans, Manish Pandey. A lot of people also believe he's been given a rough deal in the ODI team. Still has a decent record there. Just found his way out after not doing a lot wrong, but doesn't seem very near to the top Indian side. Now you look at Sunrisers Hyderabad paid. I'm just looking at that
12,
now.
12, right?
12 point. Manish Pandey was 11 crore that they paid for him a few years back.
Has he got
So I'm
Chennai
trying to
written
see
all
if
over him?
there's interest. Yeah, looks like
Great.
KKR are interested. He has played for KKR before, so they've started up at 1 crore. We'll see how Manish Pandey goes. Still a strong, solid fielder as well. So you've got that to your advantage. Teams that he'd fit well in. GS.
All teams, because you need nobody's even gone into the middle order aspect yet. Teams are only focusing on certain skill sets now. Manish Pandey, his skill set is one of the least in demand actually in terms of Indian only sole middle order batter, right? You don't think that he's going to. He's not had that consistent run as well. So he had a lot of opportunities. They banked a lot on Manish Pandey, to be honest. They've given him a lot of different responsibilities. Sometimes I feel he's best suited at either as an opener or at number 3. So teams have to use him well. And look, Ronak, the other thing I believe is certain times a player peaks slightly much later than what maybe a particular team picks him for, or the team in which he's picked. That's very important. Maybe there's a second wing for Manish Pandey where he might get picked in a franchise where he's maybe given more responsibility, and you'll see the best of him. So all that matters. There's no pressure of the money if he goes for a lower amount, that is.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll see the best of Manish Pandey. So I don't expect too high, but decent prices.
Yeah, Sunrisers did bring their paddle to the auction, so they've raised it a couple of times now. They only went up to 3 crore, though a little less than that. The Delhi Capitals are interested, so they're trying to make or rebuild almost an Indian core group of players. They also had let go of Shreyas Iyer, so this could be a role that they're looking at for a Manish Pandey. They've already got a pretty good-looking top order with David Warner, Prithvi Shaw, Rishabh Pant. They have Akshar Patel in the lower middle order as well, who does a job with bats. So they're trying to build a strong core here. And just as the Capitals were looking good at about 3 or 4 crore, Gautam Gambhir is advised LSG to come in for another bit. So Lucknow are interested in a Manish Pandey. Gambhir, of course, I think did captain Manish Pandey successfully in his time at KKR.
And wonder if Rahul and Manish are state-mates or something. I'm not too
Rahul
sure.
and Manish are state-mates, though that doesn't always translate into success. Rahul and Mayank are state-mates. Rahul and Anil Kumble are state-mates. Rahul and
Just joking.
half the Punjab team were state-mates. But that's another dynamic for another day. So it looks like Andy Flowers on the phone. Here he is, the Lucknow franchise, perhaps talking to the captain. You think that the Indian players are still glued in on this today? Yes. Yeah, yes.
Not
something?
me. I think it was Dan.
No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
sold.
Sold 4.6. Yeah, 4.6. You've got a better feed than us. I can't say the same about the internet, Dan, but you've certainly got the better
Yeah.
feed than us.
my TV's taking up all the internet.
Yeah, no, it's good now. It's good. It's much better now. 4.6
I'm slightly
crore,
ahead of you.
Manish Pandey's price, right? I did miss in all that where he's actually ended up. Anyone got in?
He went to Lucknow.
Lucknow. So he's gone to Lucknow. It's interesting buy again. We've already said Lucknow got a really good deal on Quinton de Kock, 4.6 crore. Dan, thoughts?
I love it. I think, like we talked about before, it's a bit of a reclamation project. For that price to get an Indian middle order batsman, it's not always easy to find. It's just whether he's satisfied with, I suppose, that level of money, and that'll bring the best out of him. But I think it's a great buy for Lucknow, and I think they're building a fantastic team so far.
Yeah, they've had a good start, and we made the points already. Gambhir likes him, has got the best out of him. KL Rahul is a state-mate. Wasim Jaffer, 4.6. What do you make of that?
I think it's a good buy. And again, I think Gautam has worked with him. And I feel they've got their top 3 sorted out. And again, Manish Pandey likes to bat at number 3. Like all of us have said that when he bats out of his position, he's not very comfortable. So I think that's the spot for him. And I think Gambhir probably, wants him to bat there. And I think they've got their 1, 2, 3 sorted out.
Likely that Marcus Stoinis will perhaps continue his role as a middle order player then, and not the opener that he loves to be for the Melbourne Stars. JS, looking good, Lucknow.
Yeah, so far good. As I said, competition for Manish Pandey, there are not many players there. So, and price also, it's not too high. So I think it's a fair price. People are, I think a lot of players have kind of understood that they shouldn't, over time, over so many auctions, they realized what's the kind of a decent price point for the particular player. So that's something very interesting and exciting in this auction. I don't see people just going all the way for certain players. So yeah, so it's a good price point, and we'll have to see who are the other players like Manish Pandey who plays that role. Ambati Raidu is one who does that. Robin Uthappa is another player who does that. So I think you would look at a similar range for those kind of players.
Shimron Hetmeyer is up next. In he comes, and it looks like interest from the Delhi Capitals, his former side, who again are looking for familiar players to come back. And Rajasthan Royals seem to be interested as well, who've already been
you missed
busy
that
with their
with
overseas.
with my advanced internet. Sanger just held down the owner's hand when he was going a little bit getting a little bit out of control. So
Yeah,
but
yeah, but
they're going hard. They're going hard. This is a huge bit for Hitmar.
575.
Shimon Hetmeyer from
It's
a
up to 6.25.
Sorry, just hold on.
now.
He's crossing David Warner and Quinton de Kock in a minute. So I want people to appreciate that. If he's at 625 and counting, yes, GS now makes sense of Hetmeyer.
Yeah, so from a data perspective, Shimon Hetmeyer is a very favorite player of numbers. I'll tell you why. When you look at, when you start analyzing who are the best spin hitters in the world, and especially overseas spin hitters, Hetmeyer always comes on top. I've done this quite some time. He's always in the top two or three. Not many players who come at his at the batting at 4 and 5 is one of the hardest places to bat in a T20 franchise, right? You don't know what's the situation, etc. He's a player who's plays spin well, and he actually did a wonderful job for Delhi in spite of him not playing the role which you would want him to play. West Indies don't pick him because he's not fit. He doesn't satisfy the fitness criteria, but in an IPL, I don't think they care so much about that. So he's a great spin hitter, which is why I can clearly see why the franchises are going. I really thought Punjab would bid for him because they also need that kind of a role. But Shimon Hetmeyer in the middle. Huh?
There's still time for Punjab to
Still
come in.
time. Yeah, so let's hold on till he actually goes somewhere, JS, to see exactly who's interested and when they come in. But no, point is fair. He was picked up by RCB for a little over 4 crore in 2019, went to Delhi Capitals at 7.75, and his current bid is coming there too. So Shimron Hetmeyer continues to be a player of significant interest in the IPL. He's gone past David Warner, past Quinton de Kock, and then it looks like the teams are following GS's point. There are a number of analysts now that are presenting that sort of data, saying Hetmeyer is the kind of guy you want to take on players, maybe spinners, or play that power role at 5-6. Does he hold value at 775 for you?
No, I don't think he does. I think that's an overvalued player because once again he's been removed from a West Indies team because of fitness. It's not a total package like some of these other players that we're talking about. So I worry when teams go so hard on that certain part of their game. I understand that skill set is high, but teams will counter that with bowling pasted and bowling short. He's been found out by the short ball at times. So to spend, I'm looking at 825 now on my TV, to spend that for an overseas player who is not a guaranteed selection is the one that always surprises me.
Yeah, 825, and Delhi Capitals are interested. So they want to bring him back. Already quite a few left-handers in their team. There's Warner, there's Pant, there's Akshar Patel a little later. Hetmeyer would make 4, and whatever it's worth. But 825. Now, Wasim, there are a lot of Indian players that you think are being looked at for that role, but there aren't. You tend to sometimes go down the route of an overseas player to play that finisher's role, which is so hard to find. Shimron Hetmeyer at 850, 8.5 now. Wow.
Yeah, it does. It does surprise me as well. But I think Praveen Amre likes him. Whenever I had a word with him, he likes him. And obviously that 5, 6, 7 position is so crucial. And that's where probably he'll fit in. And he does bring the power package. And I think whatever chances that he's got at Delhi, last couple of seasons, he's done well. So that's why probably we see a lot of interest from Delhi. But he does bring the power.
Sorry, Wasim. That interest has been outmatched by Rajasthan Royals. So I've got you just to confirm that. So you can carry on now, Wasim, because at 8.5 crore, he's gone to the Rajasthan Royals. Now, if I just enter that onto my sheet, I'm already looking at a Rajasthan team that has Butler and Trent Bolt. Shimron Hetmeyer forms, you think, number 3 from that overseas set. and will perhaps do that role of playing in the middle order. They've already spent good money on bowl. They picked up Ashwin, so they're down to 40 crore in a balance. But Wasim, now you can carry on your point. What do you make of Hetmeyer going to a Rajasthan Royals?
I think if you buy somebody for that kind of money, he needs to be a guaranteed selection, and that's going to be a question mark. You can only play 4 overseas, so that is again. Rajasthan Royal keeps doing that time and again. They buy a lot of international players and they buy it for a very large sum. And then, having that core group of Indian players, that's where they struggle. So really surprised with that. But he's way above the price he should have got.
Dan, you second that? Hetmeyer 8.5 to Rajasthan.
Yeah. No, these conversations are always hard. It's not a slight on the player or who he is, and he can have a great season. It doesn't mean anything like that. I think what we're talking about is team building and understanding how you can grow your team, and I think it revolves around those Indian domestic players. So when you throw this amount of money on a player who could be dropped from your playing 11, and to Rajasthan have that history around changing their overseas players quite easily, to spend all that money on that player, it's not the start of team building. And I think that's what these good franchises will do in these situations, is build a team.
All right. Now, GS had a smile on his face halfway through that answer, because while we're discussing Hetmeyer, CSK have picked up Robin Uthappa's services for base price. So I'm going to come to that in a second. But GS, you can give me your take. You've already told us why franchises are so keen on a player like Hetmeyer. Big point on data there. But 8.5 and a fit to the Rajasthan Royals, who already have a couple of overseas players. What do you make of that? And then you can carry on about Uthappa.
Yeah, when you pay this much money, you generally tend to have to play them, right? That's a tendency. That's why, again, I go back to CSK. They paid 9 crores for K. Gautam and didn't give him a game. So do you have that mentality? You just want to pick a player for a slot right now and don't worry about the price. The price is determined by the auction dynamics. Don't worry about that. Play him when if you feel that he can satisfy a particular role. But now that you're paid so much, I'm pretty sure Rajasthan are looking at a number 3 or number 4, maybe their designated finisher there. And but to be fair, like, we know how much demand a finisher role is, right? Because there's only Shah Rukh Khan in India and there are not many overseas finishers. So Hetmeyer will be Rajasthan's finisher. So you have Butler and you still have Hetmeyer. It's just 2 overseas players there. They put too much money on David Miller all these days and they moved to Hetmeyer. So I think it's okay from a Rajasthan strategy point. I don't think it's a wrong call at all. From a first 11 slot, he definitely fits in.
All right, let's move on. Uthappa has gone at base price to Chennai, and while we're at it, Jason Roy has gone at base price to Gujarat. So Jason Roy and Shubman Gill could be one of the opening combinations that Gujarat Titans employ. Gone for base price. Let's get thoughts on Uthappa first up. GS, it's not a surprise if we know CSK.
Yeah, not a surprise at all. Again, it's a slot that very few players, like I mentioned, are there. And you saw what he did for them last season. Maybe they want to give one more year and see if he can continue to do the good job. He's very happy playing for CSK. And the other thing is, Ronak, he can also open. His most successful stint has been as an opener. Now, they didn't find that foreign opener, so they're going behind Robin Uthappa. Maybe if they don't find that opener, Robin Uthappa and Ruturaj will open for CSK. So at 2 crores, for me, the most important thing is price points. At 2 crores, it's a very, very good buy.
All right, very fair then. And it's base price that Jason Roy has gone for. Dan, what do you make of Gujarat Titans picking him up? Jason Roy going there to possibly partner Shubman Gill if he makes the 11.
I think it's a great buy. And these are the buys that sort of set teams up to get a quality player at their base price. They know they can play them. They know it's not a problem to deselect them if things aren't going well, as opposed to the player at the 8-9 crore mark. I think it's just a really smart purchase from a franchise that's obviously looking to do things well, and he's one of those players that can bring that to the table.
Wasim, Uthappa 2 crore Chennai and Jason Roy 2 crore Ahmedabad. Thoughts?
I think they are good buys. I was surprised that not many teams shown interest in Jason Roy for his recent exploits in PSL. And obviously playing in Maharashtra, like we have said, those pitches are going to suit him. So he's definitely a very, good buy. Uthappa, not a really big surprise because he can play on multiple positions. He's done well for them, so they've shown consistency with their selection.
All right, and in all of that, David Miller has become the first player to be passed on at this auction. So once a player with such high demand for the Punjab Kings, found space for the Rajasthan Royals, but not necessarily a place in their 11. So he's gone unsold. But you think, Dan, he's the kind of player that will pop up in the accelerated part, maybe after the balance person. You think someone should pick him up for something, David Miller?
Look, it's a tough one. I think he'll be one of those players that just, if a team needs to fill a slot, middle order, overseas player, then they can look at him because he is a proven performer, albeit that he hasn't had the success of as early on. But he is a great teammate, a great guy to have around, and so I think teams will value that. But it will be at the back end of everything.
One thing about someone like Miller GS has always been, even though he still makes South Africa's 11, a lot of players don't make their international teams. Somehow never set the IPL on fire. Suddenly no interest at all for a Miller, or do you think he will be picked up by tomorrow?
I think he's been tried for too long now, and he's never really had that match-winning innings for any franchise he's played since that early days in Punjab. So I expected him to go unsold in this category, and he has gone unsold. There are other options today. In case nobody has anything left, they might just pick him back towards the end, but I don't think he will have an IPL team this time.
Okay, interesting. We'll see tomorrow, maybe just to fill up a slot if a team wants him at base price. Maybe bring him on as a specialist fielder. He can do that gig pretty well, David Miller. Due respect to him, though, still makes the South African team, but somehow has never found the love in the IPL, and as a result, essentially, of performances. Now, the big player in this set is up and is being bid on aggressively. Devdutt Padikkal is here. Bangalore showed an interest. Rajasthan Royals have shown an interest. Mumbai Indians, curiously, have shown an interest. So that is very, very keen to see. Yes, GS.
So again, very curious, but now I'm seeing a pattern. Rajasthan Royals bid for Shikhar Dhawan. They didn't get him. Now they're building for Padikkal in spite of having Jaiswal and Butler, which means it means just two things. One, I don't think Butler is going to open for them, or he's unavailable, or there's something with respect to Butler there, which we don't know. Or maybe they want to play Butler as a finisher, which could maybe be their strategy, because there's no other reason why they go so high on Dhawan and their second option is Padikkal. So clearly there's something which we don't know, which we'll know maybe when the IPL starts, but there is a reason for that.
Clearly, yeah, that's a very fair point. And Sanju Samson, who's also opened in the past, looks like he's going to stick to number 3, and they are very aggressively looking for an Indian opening bat. You already have Yashasvi Jaiswal there, so they want perhaps someone with a bit more experience, but Padikkal's also, you could say, in that category of just someone who's been in the IPL a couple of years, impressive years as they may be. But Padikkal is certainly on the radar of Rajasthan, and they have the bid with them because the Mumbai Indians have backed out. So Mumbai Indians are also looking to find a replacement for Kishan, who they may not get now, and Quinton de Kock, who they also did not go aggressively for. So Padikkal at 7.75 crore for Rajasthan. Dan, it's a team that we follow closely, and it's sold, is it? Right. Give me a reaction to that. 7.75 Padikkal for Rajasthan.
I think that's a great point, and obviously GS has summed it up that they're looking to either worried about Butler's availability or the fact that they'll shift him down to that 4 or 5 spot to allow Padikkal and Jaiswal to open. So look, he had a fantastic IPL, and I think that's the sort of buy that all of us sit back and say, okay, you're building you're building your domestic players. You've got a young Indian player on the rise who's proven. This is the sort of players that make IPL teams.
Let's go to Wasim Jaffer on that. 7.75. Again, I would have thought of a number of other franchises that could have been keen on a Padikkal, but it looks like Rajasthan, who also have those top order options already in place. Wasim.
Yeah, I think, like you said, in two very inexperienced players, at this point, Yashasvi and Devdutt, if you just go by the numbers or number of games they played in the IPL. So I feel if they go for another opener in the later half, you could see Yashasvi Jaiswal sitting out, because at this point, Devdutt Padikkal will make the 11 more than Yashasvi Jaiswal. So very interesting that, you would want to open with 2 left-handers and 2 very inexperienced players who have not played too many games in IPL.
Yep, that's where Jaiswal's going. It almost, JS, puts their batting together. You've got Butler, Samson, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Devdutt Padikkal, assuming if they all play in the same team, and Shimron Hetmyer. That's already, most bases covered in your T20 11.
Yeah, spot on. And they have Ashwin, and did they pick another bowler?
Trent Bolt. They picked Trent Bolt.
Yeah, so that's they have their core ready, and they have a decent amount of money left, I would think, right? They didn't go heavily on. They got two for 16, 17 crore. Oh no, they bought Bolt also for 8 crores. So yeah, so Rajasthan's purse is dwindling, but I think they've done a good job.
32.75 for Rajasthan. So yes, it
Yeah,
is. It is
and
on
like
the
you
low side.
said, the difficult slots are filled, Ranak. The difficult slots are filled. They have 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sorted, and you have 7 and a bowler sorted. So now they're just looking for a couple of finishers, and maybe they'll go for some more Indian fast bowlers and a spinner to support Ashwin, maybe. So it's a good team.
What
It's
this
shaping up well.
what this pretty much does is it almost rules them out for the race for perhaps some of the high priced players that are likely to come. Would they be in a bidding war for a Yuzvendra Chahal or for Avesh Khan or Ishan Kishan? Now you think won't that is certainly not on their radar. So that's something to take note of. The other point here to perhaps make is that Josh Butler, you never know by the time he actually comes in for the IPL whether he could be an England captain, whether he could be somebody who will not be as available. So that's something they need to consider if Butler is not to play. It does look like they are looking for a team that is not reliant on Butler's availability, because that is something that has hurt Rajasthan, that they had the likes of Butler, Stokes, Chris Morris, Jofra Archer, and they were hamstrung by a lot of the availability and injury surrounding their overseas players. Suresh Raina has gone unsold in all this. It doesn't come as much of a surprise. Wasim, would there still be a team for him come tomorrow to fill up a slot, or do you think we could very well see the end of Raina here?
I think we'll see him at a later point in the auction. Obviously, I'm not surprised because he hardly played any cricket. He's not playing international cricket. He's not playing any first class cricket. So obviously obviously he sat out most of the IPL after the first half. So it doesn't surprise me.
Dan, Steve Smith also goes the Raina way, unsold for now. Beg your pardon, did lead the Pune franchise, which is now the same owners as the Lucknow franchise in 2017, and was a different player, you think, in international cricket then, but no takers even at base price for Steve Smith. Could that likely be the case tomorrow evening?
I think it'll be touch and go. I think once again teams will look at that 2 crore and think I can put it somewhere else for the moment. But I think if you come at the back end of it and teams still have money and they like the thought of that experience of a Smith as a backup batsman, then why not? But I think teams will, we're reluctant for that sort of player who hasn't dominated the IPL in the last few years.
All right, Dwayne Bravo's names come up, but unlike the likes of Steve Smith and Suresh Raina, Bravo's getting a bid, and absolutely no points for guessing who's put in the first bid. The yellow paddle of the Chennai Super Kings has gone up for one of their IPL greats, certainly a champion player, and someone who had an impact in the second leg of the IPL too. They managed his workload and they managed to get the best out of DJ Bravo going into the final. The Sunrisers are as interested, it seems, so they've woken up. The minute the Sunrisers come in, you know that you're against the odds in terms of balance first. So Sunrisers seem to be keen on a Dwayne Bravo. Of course, is now retired from international cricket. GS looks like he's got a 3 crore bid. I thought at best he's going to go at base, but no, there seems to be more appetite for Bravo.
Yeah, again, committed, experience, still has it in him, and Chennai know how to get the best out of him. So they would ideally want to get Dwayne Bravo, but you know that you're going to get only maybe a year or so from him. But looks like Chennai might actually get back Uthappa and Bravo the way the bids are going. So Dan will know before us anyway, so he'll let us know. But having said that, he still has his experience and he plays T20 leagues across. And like Dan said, maybe 1 year goal, it's a good buy.
It looks like entered. Yes, Dan.
No, I was just saying, I wonder if teams know that CSK want him and would just push him up a little bit. Just go along for the ride for a short period of time, still knowing that he has value, but they just don't want CSK to get all their players so easily. So yeah, I mean, I think it'd be good to see our predictions before the auction and to see how close we were. But I think something like 4 to 5 crore for Bravo for 1 or 2 years is still worthwhile.
Yeah, 4 crore is where he's at now, and Delhi Capitals seem to be going down that route. They'd be happy to have a Dwayne Bravo at 3.8, but they'd also be keen to push that up for CSK, and that bids now in excess of 4 crore. But Dan makes an interesting point, Wasim, that he's got value even now, though you're not going to get 11 games out of him. So how much are you willing to pay for a reserve player at best, or a player whose workload will have to be managed like Bravo? And remember, it is a much longer IPL than it was even in previous years. So he's already at 440. Does that make sense to you?
It doesn't, but I think he's a proven performer, and he's a match winner, and he's somebody who's won trophies across, a lot of other franchises. So you don't mind spending money on those kind of players, and CSK has shown interest, which doesn't
So-
surprise me. They do.
All right, Dan, tell us where he's gone. Has he gone to the Capitals, or has he gone back to
Gone
CSK?
to Super Kings,
Yes.
gone to CSK.
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 Right. 4.4. So 4.4. MS Dhoni is getting the team he wanted, or rather the team that he's familiar with, that he's led for so many years with such success. Bravo at 4.4 crore. Dan, would that satisfy you if you were CSK? Would you felt, I could have done with them a bit cheaper?
No, I think that's a fair buy. I think you saw from last year he still offers value and his ability still to be an all-round contributor. And I think that's the thing we forget when the Chennai players, it's an all-round contribution that's thereafter. And he can still bring that to the table, albeit that it won't be every game. But I think they'll manage him and understand where he's going to be most effective. And he's part of folklore at CSK, so they wouldn't have wanted to see him anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. We know MS Dhoni likes his all-rounders. So as Nitish Rana comes up for a bit, very keen to see how he goes. But GS, happy with that if you're a CSK fan, which of course you're not. But
Yeah, I think, like Dan said, experience plus the price point is not too bad. Yes, they would have hoped to get him at base or maybe 1 crore more, but it's not too much considering the purse they have. He's again first 11 performer. He plays. If you look at it this way, Ronak, if you get a first 11 player for 4.4 crores, I think you should be more than happy that's a good buy. So that's how I look at it. If not all for 14 games, if he even plays like 8 to 10 games and comes during the key times, he delivers, it's more than enough. So Bravo is a very good pick. And now let's enjoy the bidding of Nitish Rana, who's likely to go pretty high.
yeah, I'm curious on that point, because when I saw Nitish Rana and Harshal Patel in the all-rounder set, I was quite curious. I was trying to figure, like, who decides this? Does the player decide I'm going to be entering this as an all-rounder? Because you have a lot of other players that could have easily called themselves all-rounder. Harshal Patel, with due respect to his batting skills, and Nitish Rana, with due respect to his bowling skills, would feature as specialist bowlers and bats if at least my domestic cricket is sound. Wasim Jafar, do you see the point in that? They're entering as all-rounders, perhaps to come in a bit earlier?
Well, I think he does give you, a couple of overs. He's got that at least that much, ability as a bowler. And again, he's one of those guys who can bat 3, 4, 5. And being a left-hander, he's a power hitter. And he does bowl spin. He does bowl a little bit seam up. So he can give you 2 overs at best. So it does surprise me that he's in that all-rounder category.
Yeah, Lucknow are in at 7.5. Mumbai were in initially. They've pulled out. I think they've set a bit of a cap initially as to what they want to spend on any player. They've been in the market for a Trent Bowl, for Quinton de Kock, now Nitish Rana, but they've pulled out. Devdutt Padikkal also they were interested in, but only up to about the 5 crore mark. We're now seeing the Lucknow franchise with Andy Fla, Gautam Gambhir in attendance show an interest in Nitish Rana at 8 crore. KKR also interested in him as their former franchise player. 8 crore for Rana and counting. Dan, thoughts?
Well, I think not too many people have got De Villiers and Kohli out in the same over, so I think that's the contributing factor to tipping over the edge. But I think, once again, it's continuity. KKR has been sold. KKR are following the CSK mold, and obviously Fleming and McCallum are very close, and they're probably trying to reenact what Chennai put together and bringing back players who got them to the final last year, and they think they can grow with them over the next 3 years. And so far, they've bought very good players. Plus, they've added in Shreyas Iyer. So if they can fill that team out, it's a really good start.
I mean, 20 crore, so the minimal purse left, but you'd be happy if you're KKR, Wasim. You've added Nitish Rana and Shreyas Iyer to your existing bunch of players, along with Pat Cummins. So yes, they are going for their familiar group of players from the last few seasons.
I think it does make sense. It does make, that you've got familiar squad. And on top of that, Indian player, you've got core players who are Indian. It does make sense, and it makes it easier to work with. And Brendan McCallum will be happy to have those players back. They played the final, so they'll be happy.
All right, GS, quick word on Nitish Rana at 8. Was that where you valued him?
8 to 10 is what I thought he'll get. But again, one thing which is very surprising, I don't see too many bids from various franchises. I thought Rana and all would see a lot of bids. the new franchise like Ahmedabad, Lucknow, they all need to build that core middle order, right? And I don't know what kind of players they are.
Lucknow were interested till the end in him, but yeah, not a lot of other teams.
Yeah, so an SRH, for example, they need to build a core around Kane Williamson.
SRH are going to spend everything on Kishan. I think that's what it'll be interesting to give Tom Moody a call right now. He clearly wants everyone who comes into the basket later on. So Avesh Khan, SRH, Ishan Kishan, SRH, everybody who comes in, Yuzvendra Chahal, SRH, they need someone to do Rashid Khan's job. So maybe we'll see when SRH show up. But Jason Holder, someone we really talked up in our preview auction day coverage. And we know Holder, of course, is at the peak, you could say, of his white ball cricket too. He's now in the West Indies team player of the series against England recently. Good value add to the Sunrisers last year. And we're seeing CSK show an interest in him, GS. Very interesting. CSK have shown interest. Mumbai came in. Now Rajasthan have entered as well. Rajasthan are just going. They're going to play about 7 overseas players, I think, in their 11. But Jason Holder at 625 and counting. Dan?
He's up 675. If that was the update you're up to,
going up pretty quickly. Yeah, 7 crores.
No, look, I think we talked a lot about him, and we thought, well, I thought he'd get up to 8-9 crore because of his value. There are very few cricketers who can bowl 1 to 20, field long on, and bat anywhere in the top 6 or 7. And I think that's when teams are viewing him. That's where they'll see him. They'll see him at his absolute best, and he's up to 7.25 now. So there's a lot of teams who see the value in him, and as an overseas all-rounder, he brings everything to the table.
What we've seen from Rajasthan is almost a similar pattern. They're willing to spend big on some of their overseas players. So they've got Butler already retained at 10, Bolt and Hetmeyer, and now they're willing to go over 7 for a Jason Holder. Wasim, interesting that, because you know how many overseas options there are that have Holder skill set. Mitchell Marsh has one, but many more questions about his fitness and bowling form. Jason Holder, thoughts? 7.5 and counting?
I think he's probably the legitimate all-rounder. I mean, you can count him as a proper all-rounder who can bowl his full quota of overs, can win you matches with his bat too, and he can be one of those guys who can be a backup captain. He's led teams, he's led franchises, so he's definitely. I thought he's going to go for big money. I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised that Rajasthan again going for big foreign players. So their strategy doesn't seem to change.
8 crore and counting. So Rajasthan are really keen to, even if they need to break the bank on him, they're at 32. This would take them down to 24. They do have a good contingent of overseas players. Yes, Jays.
Yeah, Ronak. So if you look at again, we saw they built a team up to number 6, and now you have Jason Holder at number 6, right? And then you have Ashwin at 7, Bolt at 8. See the kind of skill sets they have. Bolt is a swing bowler, power play bowler. Holder is a hit the deck, tall bowler who can also give you 4 overs and bat at number 6. Good player of spin. Hetma is a good player of spin. So they're focusing fully on their first 11. I won't be surprised if they make their first 11 till about 10 crores or 8 crores remaining. I think that's more than enough if you know you've scouted enough for your backups. If you know that you have enough bench strength to manage that, then I think you're okay. So I can understand their strategy, but I don't think they'll get Holder for the price.
So Lucknow have come in. Where's he gone then?
Sold to Lucknow. Sold to Lucknow for 875.
875 Lucknow. So Gautam Gambhir and Andy Flower have said Jason Holder is going to be value. And as I look at that Lucknow team now, which has got Marcus Stoinis in it and Quinton de Kock, so Jason Holder at that sort of price, you think is a certainty in your team. So let's get comments and reactions on that. Dan, they've got Rahul, Bishnoi, and Manish Pandey as the Indians, and Stoinis, de Kock, Jason Holder. Good business so far for Lucknow?
I think they'll be very happy. They feel like they're formulating those key positions, obviously at the top of the order, and then to be able to have Jason Holder there gives them the opportunity to build their all-rounders and mix and match. So I think the 2 new teams seem to be veterans at this. They've got a good feel for what they need to do, and they're proving themselves, almost experts at the start of the auction.
Yeah, Wasim, it looks like Lucknow are bringing in all-rounders for their overseas slots. Quinton de Kock's already there, Marcus Stoinis, Jason Holder. They've identified what they want from their overseas players.
I think it's very key positions as well. At number 6 or 7, you've got bowlers who can bat, and there are batters who can bowl as well. So a very good strategy from them, and which doesn't surprise me knowing Andy Flower so well.
Yes, 875.
Yeah, I did expect him to go 10 plus, but yeah, pretty close to that figure. So again, multiple skill sets, fits a lot of roles, and at the same time he's at his peak, he's at a good shape in his life, so that's very important. And our fellow colleague Sampath just gave me a stat saying he's the highest paid West Indian in an auction, whatever in an auction. So that's very interesting, and it's good for Jason Holder. He's been around for ages now, almost this is 9th year from the first time he was picked, and maybe some players peak late and he's a beneficiary of that.
All right, fair enough. Holder, of course, has also just evolved into this more valuable T20 bowler. He seems to be bowling at the death now for the West Indies too. So his roles have become key, and it couldn't come at a better time for Jason Holder. So very, very, very happy for him. The West Indies Test captain, 875 is where he goes to Lucknow. Now, Shakib Al Hasan's gone unsold in all of this. As much as he is Bangladesh's greatest ever white ball player, doesn't seem to quite have that sort of success in the IPL. Certainly not recently. Is an IPL winner, if I'm not mistaken, with KKR. GS was part of that team, wasn't he? One of the years that they won.
Yeah,
he has gone
again, his
unsold.
availability is a big issue this time.
Yeah.
He's not available for almost 4 or 5 weeks of the tournament. So I think people understand that you have only 8 overseas slots and you don't want to struggle without. When you're not in the first 11, it doesn't make sense.
All right. Now, what we are seeing is, I'll tell you what, if I'm just going to have some fun here. I'm going to go with body language of how you raise the paddle for a minute. And I have not seen Hyderabad more interested in raising the paddle than I have right now for Harshal Patel. So they have the money. They can pick whoever they want if they get into a bidding war. And I just get the impression that Harshal Patel is someone that they're going to get no matter what. Dan Vittori, are you seconding my body language reading skills?
No, I see Kings 11. I see Kings 11 doing things, coming in the background. Remember, I'm 10 seconds in front of you. No, they haven't started bidding yet, but I think RCB and Sunrisers are absolutely desperate. But I do like what you say about body language with how they lift the paddle. I'm not sure if you saw Mumbai just hold the panel directly up and not put it down when Jason Holder first came up, and they took the bid to 5 crore in about 30 seconds. So teams will have some strategies, but in the end, it's just who's confident enough to hold it up last.
725 and counting. Hyderabad and Bangalore interested, and it still goes up.
7.75.
Yeah, it goes up. It goes up. Harshal Patel's, you think with where his game is, Wasim, at the moment, Harshal Patel, it's not just, I don't think it's fair to call him a one-season wonder, because we're seeing what he is producing, especially with that slower ball and the value he adds for the death. He's even capped for India now. There is value in Harshal Patel at this stage of his career, isn't there?
It is. There's no doubt about it. And I think most of obviously he's been playing IPL for so many years, but I think the kind of season that he's had, I think that is the reason why he's getting such kind of money. But I think he's one of those guys who bowls in the middle overs and definitely in the death. And he's won you games. He's got hat tricks. He's got 5 wicket hauls, and that is the reward he's reaping. But I think he's obviously getting paid much more than obviously what I thought.
All right, 9 crore and counting, and that body language of the Sunrisers that I'm so talking up right now seems to be working for them. Dan, have you got a confirmation yet? No, RCB are still interested. They want Patel back.
RCB have got it at the moment. No, there goes
So
Sunrisers. Let's swap roles, Ronnie.
I'm
I'll
happy
call the
to.
money.
I'm happy to. Your job's easier.
950.
It's very funny, isn't it? I think Harshal played when Dan played, and that time nobody really put so much value to him. He was traded to Delhi. He was brought back by RCB again. Sometimes life it's very weird, the IPL. It's almost like 8-9 years since Harshal started, and now he's reaping the reward. So,
But Jess, I think there's so much in that the fact that all he did was go away, work on his fitness, and also execute his slow ball and his Yorker. And those are the two things that have got him to 10.25 crore he's up to at the moment. So it's as simple as that. And that gives players who potentially have struggled in the IPL or need some direction. It's Harshal Patel. These are the 3 simple things you can do to actually be extremely effective in the IPL.
1075 and counting. So suddenly Hyderabad's intensity has dropped. Maybe they expected the interest for Harshal to drop because they're the ones coming in, right? You know that teams do not want to necessarily get into a bidding war with Hyderabad. But the other way of looking at it, as Dan Vittori has said, is they will keep going because Hyderabad has the money to spend. It looks like Hyderabad have pulled out. So they gave themselves a budget, you think, that we wouldn't mind Harshal Patel up to
RCB.
10. RCB at 1075. That's a lot of money spent to retain the services of Harshal Patel. Got to ask the question of whether they could have even retained him or whether it was a call by the player to go into the auction. So you can always go there. Don't think immediately that why didn't RCB just retain him, because you could see that Harshal Patel might very well have got this sort of money at an auction, and that's what's happened. Let's get reactions. Dan, Harshal Patel?
I think that's a fascinating conversation around a lot of these players who had the opportunity to either be retained or turned it down, and to see if them turning down that offer actually pays off in the auction. And Harshal Patel may be one of those guys. I think RCB would have looked around the Siraj number. I think it was 7 crore that they paid for him, and Harshal's obviously viewed himself as more valuable than that. It's paid off. But the good thing for him is he's back at RCB. So RCB continue to build that fast bowling core that's been successful for them. I think it's a great buy. You always want them a little bit cheaper, but his performance over the last year deserves it.
Wasim, Harshal Patel back to Bangalore, 1075.
I think it is a very interesting remark that you make, that he might have been retained and they would have saved a lot of money, to have him in the auction and then buy him for such a large price. I think he's obviously overvalued, but he's a fine bowler. There's no doubt about it. He's one of those guys who can win you games, back end of the innings. So I think good buy, but I think it's an expensive one.
All right, expensive. Where do you see that, GS? Looking at RCB, who've only picked up Faf du Plessis so far this auction, so they've spent nearly 18. They spent exactly 18 crore on the 2 acquisitions so far. Harshal Patel, thoughts?
Yeah, so if they had acquired 4 players, they would have lost a certain amount of money, right? You need to also look into that category. So if Harshal was a retention there, and I'm just, just correct me if I was wrong, Harshal was an uncapped player at that time, right? So would he have been retained at the 4 crore bracket? I'm not sure. I somehow don't remember that. I think he made his debut against New Zealand. I was not sure of the date, whether it was before the retention or after the retention. Having said that, I think it's okay. RCB would have budgeted for about 11 crores because that would have been the kind of money they would have had to lose even if they had retained him. What would have been interesting, which we'll never know, is how much like a player like Siraj is actually going in the auction, right? If Siraj is also going for around 10, 11, then suddenly their retention becomes a lot more intelligent. So you'll never know that, sadly, but I think it's a fair amount. What this tells me is, I think they have to let go of Chahal unless they again go pretty heavily on him. I need to kind of see the purse remaining for that. But
39 at the moment.
No, 39 means they can go for Chahal for another 10, 12 crores. So I think they need to buy back Chahal as well.
Okay, interesting. He's going to come up in a set pretty soon as Yuzvendra Chahal. But at the moment, Deepak Hooda is being bid on. Also capped, and one of the few changes made on the eve of the IPL auction when he's been bumped up to this set, whereas earlier he was in the uncapped category. Hooda playing a couple of games now against the West Indies. So you've got Rajasthan interested in him. You've got Chennai Super Kings interested in him. So they've raised the paddle here. So MS Dhoni's, you can always assume there's an input from MS Dhoni and Stephen Fleming. But that seems to be an interest. Deepak Hooda at 4.2 for CSK. Let's go back to Dan Vittori. He's probably seeing this a few seconds ahead of me. Rajasthan were keen on him as well.
4.8.
Where's got Punjab, guys? Punjab have not been active for a long time.
What's Punjab? Punjab is sitting quietly now. What's their balance purse? Let's go back to it. Punjab still have that decent balance purse of 54 now. So they're looking to likely compete with maybe a Hyderabad for those big players that we know are seriously going to be of interest to the franchises. Hyderabad still have all their 68 crore intact. Deepak Hooda, in fact, played for Hyderabad. I wonder if that at all plays in your calculations, Dan. You've had Hooda in your team. He didn't quite work for you. He's gone out. He's suddenly been better for Punjab. Then he's gone and been capped. He looks like he's a more confident player suddenly. Would you take him back, or do you think, now this match didn't work for us?
I think it plays a huge part. I think there's a coaching staff that will have their own bias for or against, and we talked about that before when we were saying Andy Flower had been around the leagues and he'd understood some players and taken the likes of Tim David to 2 or 3 franchises because he'd built that sort of camaraderie around him, and it works in the opposite way where teams give up on players all the time. I mean, the players, when you go through the list, have 4, 5, 6 teams to their names, means that teams move on from their performance, and someone like Deepak Hooda just may need to find the right team, the right fit, the right batting position, and then he'll make all those other teams regret it. But it definitely plays a part in selection. There'll be players that'll be crossed off teams' lists just because they don't want to have another go around with them.
Wasim, you work closely with Deepak Hooda, and of course, this is a player who's had his troubles in
Sold.
domestic cricket, now has found a home in Rajasthan. He's been sold and he's gone to Lucknow. So they've picked up another player at 5.75. What do you make of Lucknow getting Deepak Hooda and where he stands with his game at the moment, Wasim?
I think he's a very fine player, and again, I think he gives you, 2-3 utilities. He can bowl. He can give you 2-3 overs. Very fine player. I think the position where they're looking to bat him, holds a lot of importance, because I feel, Punjab, played him around at number 4, number 6. They were not sure with the dimension of his batting order. So I think if he plays at number 4, that's probably 4 or 5 is the best position for him. But I think he's a very fine player, very good fielder, and he's played IPL. He's been through that. So it's about time that we see a lot of consistent scores from him, because he's been around. He didn't send the IPL on fire for a long time, but I feel this is his time now. He's played for India now, and this is the time for him to peak.
He is going to continue being led by KL Rahul, Deepak Hooda, as he goes to Lucknow. Are you liking, JS, what you're seeing of the Lucknow team coming together? Hooda also does take another base or a box, maybe bats along with the Marcus Stoinis somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I just looking at that. They've got their top 6 sorted: Rahul,
Yeah.
de Kock, Manish, Hooda, Holder, Stoinis. So they're looking for a lot of bowling options there. If you look at it,
Yes.
3 of those top 6 players can bowl. So that gives you a lot of flexibility for the captain, and they're shaping up well again. Dan would accept bowlers win your tournament, so we'll have to see who those fast bowlers are, who they're going to pick. They haven't picked anybody right now, so it'll be interesting to see if how they go about kind of giving Jason Holder or the kind of partners he needs. So we need to see how they build that. But I think so far Rajasthan and Lucknow have been impressive, and we'll see what happens.
Coming together nicely for Lucknow. You just made that point interestingly, Dan, that the new franchises seem to be like they're almost experts at the auction. You'd be pretty pleased if you're Lucknow right now?
Yeah, and I suppose they come in with no baggage. They don't have to retain players. They don't have to, I suppose, favour anyone and they don't have any of those biases. So that they're going in looking at players and they're trying to build a team from the start. And it must be a great way to be able to do it, particularly when you already got those 3 key players at the top, and then to add those complementary pieces has been great. So I think those 2 franchises will be incredibly happy with where they are now.
Now, Wanindu Hasaranga is being bid on. Keeping an eye on the franchises interested in him. You've got the Sunrisers and you've got RCB. RCB GS, who didn't show a lot of faith in him when they picked him up last year. The Sunrisers, of course, have Muthiah Muralidharan's presence on that table. So there is an input from former Sri Lankan great. And in between these 2 IPLs, we've seen Hasaranga make an impact at the T20 World Cup, leading wicket taker, knows he can bat too. What sort of interest do you see from Hasaranga in spite of what was a pretty forgettable IPL last year?
Yeah, he didn't get enough opportunities, to be honest, and obviously first year nerves would have been there. He's playing in the league after a long time, but he's again proven himself to. His googly is very deceiving, and a lot of players are not able to pick him, which is why he's of so much interest. SRH lost Rashid Khan. They need to make up for that exact same slot, which is what Hasaranga would give them, right? So the kind of control over the middle overs. A lot of overseas players generally have tend to struggle to him. We saw even yesterday when Australia were playing Sri Lanka, I think Finch and Steve Smith struggled and got dismissed to Hasaranga. So he has a knack of getting a lot of wickets. He's a proper attacking option in the middle. So not surprised by this at all.
Punjab have jumped in, so they're interested. So the 2 teams with the most balance, maximum balance, are now entering for Hasaranga. Hyderabad have all their 68 crores still intact. Punjab, after having been busy in the marquee set and having picked up Shikhar Dhawan and Kagiso Rabada for a total of 1775 between them, have a reduced purse of 54, which is still more than a lot of the other franchises. In fact, I'm looking at it now; it's still second highest on the list. So we are seeing the teams still with the two topmost highest maximum balance purses going after Wanindu Hasaranga, who's touched 4.4. He's meandering to 4.4. It's not that quick escalation. So there's a lot of checking. There's a lot of checking. What does that tell us, Dan? When you're checking so much with somebody?
I think Sunrisers are absolutely desperate to get him. I think the Tom Moody connection, the Muralitharan connection, the likely replacement for Rashid Khan, the fact that he can bat 7 or 8, I think he's a fantastic player. And I think you talk about body language, I think Sunrisers are desperate to get him. And I see RCB have just jumped back in there. I think this could go quite high, this bid.
Yeah, it's taking its time, though, interestingly. I think there's a lot of chit-chat about how much you're willing to pay for a certain player and how that affects the rest of your dynamic. Tom Moody is an interesting point, too. He is director of cricket with Sri Lanka still. So you do have significant...
Ronak, I think a lot of these ones where coaches and management will say to themselves, we can get him at 4 or 5, and then they realise that everyone else is into him, and then they need to start making calls to owners. And I think this is why the auction slows down, is because originally they thought they could get him at a price, and as they see that it goes up and up and up, they need to make some clearance from higher up, and we're seeing that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wondered, wouldn't it just be easier to just have whoever is higher up on the table, with the exception being a captain who's currently employed for his team? I mean, would it have not been better to have MS Dhoni sitting on the table over here, or could it have, to whoever makes those calls, Dan? Would that help?
You have to show your face then. So I think it's easier to be on a phone and just give directions.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. So a lot of chat.
6.
It's almost like there's a huddle on every table that's interested in Wanindu Hasaranga, but they're still not out of it. 6 crore and counting. What's fair price for someone like Hasaranga, GS? Looking at the dynamics, looking at all the points you make, we didn't really look at him as someone who touched the 7, 8, 9 crore mark. Looking at a potentially, man who's getting pretty high up there. What do you make? What's his fair price?
Again, fair price is something you can never ask in an auction, because very few people get the actual price. But the skill set is what I look at. Googly bowler, he's as good as... we talk a lot about Rashid Khan because he's performed well in the IPL. Maybe give Hasaranga that one season and maybe he'll get you 2-3 wickets. He's consistently got, and remember, even in the World Cup, he did extremely well. Yes. It's not like he's not proven. He's shown that he's capable of doing it at the highest level. And the fact that his wrong one is very important makes it a very, very attacking option. Every team wants a googly bowler, if you look at it, because that's one skill set which a lot of overseas batters generally struggle, and even Indian batters for that matter. So it's not easy to attack him. So that's why the bid is going as high as it is now for Hasaranga. Other teams have a lot of spinners as well. So these are the teams which actually need this skill set as well.
What do you make of RCB showing this sort of interest in MGS? We spoke a little while back at Harshal Patel that they've got 39 in the kitty. Maybe they would have wanted Chahal, but it looks like they're more keen to get an overseas option like Hasaranga. So does that almost rule them out of Chahal if they are successful with Hasaranga?
Yeah, I think that's you can't take a chance, right? Suppose you don't take Hasaranga now and you don't get Chahal, then you don't have a big option. So they'll have to change their strategy a bit. Whatever they budgeted for Chahal, when you look at it, they might get Hasaranga for a cheaper price than Chahal compared to what you might have to pay for Chahal. So that gives them a backup option to buy another overseas quick or an Indian quick for that matter. So from a skill set point of view, if they pick Hasaranga, they have to go with him for all 14 games.
He was used very interestingly by Sri Lanka in the World Cup, Wasim, even though he is primarily a bowler and he has had success in the white ball format. Sri Lanka sent him up the order. He even had some very significant knocks in the T20 World Cup. So there is the all-round option in him. Can he have that sort of impact in the IPL? You think those key positions up top are usually reserved for your outright batters or your Indian batters? So someone like Hasaranga has got to play mainly for his 4 overs as a bowler?
I think so. Obviously, he plays mainly as a bowler, but I think he's decent enough batters. I mean, he can win you close games when there's run-a-ball situation. He's not going to hurt you much, but he's not, somebody who doesn't know how to bat. He's not like Yuzvendra Chahal, who's only an outright bowler, but Hasaranga is a decent enough batsman. And he's a quality leg spinner, somebody who's done well in the T20 World Cup. He's done well for Sri Lanka for so long. So not surprising that teams are going so hard at him.
We're touching 9 crore almost for Punjab. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong here. So again, it's a lot of money being spent on an overseas player, which we're not seeing the likes of a Mumbai, Chennai, point we made earlier. Whether it's an overseas fast bowler, whether it's an overseas player in general, they pretty much don't put that sort of money into a foreign player, as some teams like Punjab and Rajasthan do.
Yeah, it
But
does. It did.
Dan,
It did
yeah,
surprise me
yeah,
that,
carry on.
I mean,
Yeah.
Sorry, even last year, I think, when we had the second phase, I think when Wanindu Hasaranga was available, I think, Punjab were very interested in him, but I think he wanted to go to RCB because he wanted to play with AB and Virat. But I think, he's a quality player, and I think there's no surprises that, teams are going after him.
All right, this is big. He's become the first overseas player to touch the 10 crore mark, if I've got that right. Harshal Patel, 10.75. Shreyas Iyer, just over 12. But the highest overseas player till now has been Kagiso Rabada at 9.25. So, Dan Vittori, it's some money, this 10 crore and counting. Dan, I think you need to unmute yourself. You've lost your voice.
Sorry. I actually don't mind this. I think he is a guy that can fulfill a very specific role, and we talked about that with Jason Holder. But I think his batting is what's going to tip these franchises over the edge, and their desire to go for him. I think his bowling is fantastic, and I think he's proven that not many players around the world can pick that googly, like GS said. But it's his batting that the value that's tipping him up to this 10.5 crore now. So. It's incredible, but I mean, I think there's value in him. I think there's immense value in him.
It's a fair point you make, Dan, but I can't help but think, we reach a point where the price will dictate the playing 11. We said that for Hetmyer, that you pick a player for 10, you surely want him to play every game. Now, it's no player's fault what they go for in an auction. We've said that countless times. It's all the dynamics of the auction. But at what point do you start thinking, yes, he fits my skill set, my role, but if I'm paying this much for him, either he could be weighed down by that sort of price tag pressure. He isn't an IPL proven performer. Does that at all come in, or are you completely shutting that out going into an auction because you're only looking at skill set and you don't care about price?
Well, I think in particular RCB, who, there's been something's happened at the auction.
Oh no!
I think the auctioneer's fainted.
Oh my! Okay, something serious has happened here. Yeah.
Oh, the auctioneer fainted, I think.
Yeah, it looks like Eumedides has collapsed, and this is quite serious. We really hope things are all right. The entire auction has been halted, understandably, and the franchises are legitimately concerned. Let's hope that the auctioneer is all right. We don't want to say anything more at this point. Cameras have also moved away, but clearly it was something that took the entire auction by absolute shock. And I'm guessing now there is it's almost certain that the auction will take a break through the Wanindu Hasaranga bid, so that'll obviously have to be completed in a little while from now. But really hoping here that Mr. Eumedides, who has been the auctioneer for at least 3 or 4 auctions, if I'm not mistaken, took over from Richard Madley in 2018 and is a familiar face at these auctions. We hope he's doing better. Right, this is extremely unexpected, so we're going to just take a break now. The auction will certainly take a break for a little while. If we could just recap what's happened so far, shall we? In terms of this set as well, we have seen some big money go. Hasaranga's bid will be resumed at some point, you think. Harshal Patel has gone at 10.75 to RCB. You've got Faf du Plessis, who was picked up in the marquee set. So RCB have added 2 players today to their set. Looking at some of the other key picks from this set, you've got Padikkal going to Rajasthan Royals at 7.75. Shimron Hetmyer as well at 8.5. So they've been busy, the Rajasthan Royals. The Ahmedabad franchise, the Gujarat Titans, have picked up Jason Roy for 2 crore. Chennai Super Kings picked up Dwayne Bravo and Robin Uthappa, familiar faces from their championship winning side last year. Paid base price for Uthappa and 4.4 for Dwayne Bravo. Anrik Nortje will be joined with David Warner as the only other overseas contingent for the Capitals, who've been quiet since. And you do have KKR, who've been busy. Nitish Rana has gone back there for 8 crore. Pat Cummins already picked up again. So they're picking a familiar group of players. And they already had Shreyas Iyer earlier on in the marquee set at 12. Jason Holder, big money for Lucknow, who add to their all-round contingent with Deepak Huda 8.75 and 5.75 respectively. Right. Again, our thoughts are with with what's happening in Bangalore at the moment. We hope the auctioneer is fine. Not a pleasant sight at all. What little that we did get to see of the pictures before the cameras rightly just focused elsewhere. So let's hope things are all right and the auction resumes. And Mr. Redimides, first and foremost, more importantly, is all right. We leave it here. Let's get a quick thought, a comment from Dan, Wasim, and GS in terms of what we can expect from teams that have not been very active. Hyderabad, clearly, GS, are looking to pick up the players that come in a little later.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like that. They should have the eyes on Ishan Kishan and Yuzvendra Chahal and maybe Rahul Chahar, Shardul Thakur, Deepak Chahal. A lot of interesting names still yet to come. So, yeah, so this kind of that's the trend I'm getting. It looks like they will have to bid for these guys. Otherwise, I don't know how they're going to make the team, but they are front runners for that. And they might build a bowling attack around Hasaranga if they manage to get him, and then see what happens from there. But yeah, they're waiting, playing the long game.
What we're going to do now, I think, in all fairness, is we're going to take a break ourselves, because this is, we're just hoping that nothing, major has happened. The priority would be to make sure the auctioneer is healthy and fine. The auction will resume, I'm guessing, at some point once that has been addressed. And we will come back with Wasim Jaffer, Dan Vittori, and Gaurav Sundaraman then. For what it's worth, the Hasaranga bid at 10.75 crore was with Punjab, and that's when the auction was halted. So we hope Hugh Edemides is all right. We'll have you covered on our live blog on ESPN Cricket Info, so do catch us there. And the minute the auction does resume, once things are all right, we will be back on TVS Eurogrid presents ESPN Cricket Info Auction Day, powered by Kisma Gaming. So do join us then.